Chapter 230. Ascending the staircase, John's hand sliced down incredibly fast, appearing like a blur to all watching from the sidelines. Chi. His hand sliced directly into Grant's shoulder, severing his arm off completely. Gah! Grant cried out in pain from losing an arm. John's counterattack had been so fast that he didn't even have time to react. Grant tried to pull his blade free from John's grip and retreat, but found that it wouldn't budge no matter how hard he pulled. This delay was all John needed, as his other hand, still holding the blade, suddenly pushed outwards with all his might. Boom! Grant's sword collided with his own body, its power overwhelming him. The sounds of bones cracking rang out. Gah! Grant once more cried out in pain as he shot backwards like a broken kite, slamming into the hard ground. His body tumbled head over heels dozens of times as his body carved a long ditch in the earth. After tumbling backwards for over 300 yards, Grant's body finally came to a rest. Boom! Another loud boom echoed out as John powerfully landed on Grant's ribcage, having just jumped over from his previous position. Blood spewed out of Grant's mouth as his ribcage shattered. The previous haughty and arrogant bloodfiend sect king now lay on the ground, ruined and half-dead. Blood escaped from several parts of his body and gurgled out of his mouth as he watched John stand above him. "You might want to conceal your killing intent next time," John said to Grant, his cold eyes looking down on the dying boy. Understanding washed over Grant as he realized the fatal flaw he had made, but it was too late to change anything. Even with that knowledge, Grant knew he was destined to die as soon as he had picked a fight with John. His power had been overwhelming, and there was no hope of victory. Life faded from his eyes, and the former king of the Bloodfiend sect soon ceased to exist. John looked down on his corpse with cold, unmoving eyes for a moment before he collected his corpse in his palace realm. Grant had underestimated him, which resulted in his quick death. Had he taken John more seriously, the fight would have lasted a bit longer, but his only fate was death as soon as he challenged John. "Let's see what his spatial ring holds," John mumbled to himself as he sent his divine sense into the spatial ring. A soul seal was placed on the ring, preventing him from peering with. John sent a powerful wave of his soul power to wash over the seal, instantly shattering the seal. His divine sense peered inside the ring. Weapons, spirit crystals, cultivation scrolls. John noticed quite a few valuables inside Grant's ring. However, with John's incredible wealth, none of it truly enticed him. John's interest was suddenly piqued as he noticed a large box, a dozen yards tall and wide, sealed in the corner of the spatial realm. It had a seal placed on it as well, hiding the contents within. John sent his power once more to erase the seal and quickly opened the boxes to peer within. His face instantly darkened as the open boxes revealed several fresh corpses to him. This wasn't completely surprising to him, however, as the Bloodfiend sect was known to cultivate taboo arts which required human blood. 2 corpses belonged to disciples of the Divine Soul sect, and John quickly recognized one as belonging to the girl he had met at the lake. He shook his head in pity. While he had some enmity with the girl, it wasn't to the point of life or death. Another corpse belonged to a Supreme Battle sect boy who John had never seen before. John suddenly spotted blue cloth on the bottom of the pile and pushed aside the other bodies to reveal the source of the blue. It was a Heavenly Lightning sect member and was one of the inner disciples John recognized from his classes. He had spoken with the boy once or twice and had a rather good impression of him. John shook his head in pity as he moved the corpses to his palace realm. He must have been snuck up on by Grant, otherwise he would have crushed his talisman. Despite the safety of the talismans, danger lurked all around. No matter how prepared one was, in the cultivation world, danger would always be present. The corpses' blood essence, Grant's included, was quickly separated from their bodies and sent to John's body. A surge of vibrant energy filled his danshan, raising its level once more. However, much to John's expectations, it still wasn't enough to break through. Each major realm truly does require a monstrous increase over the last realm's requirements. It appeared that each major realm increase required nearly 10 times the amount of corpses as the previous realm. This scaling was massive, and John shook his head at the thought of how many bodies he would need in the future to level his body up. However, John wasn't too disappointed. With how many blood-fiend sect youths were present in the ancient city, he knew he would advance sooner or later. His soul suddenly left his spatial realm and returned to the real world. John brushed the dust off his robe and walked back towards the staircase. The crowd watched from a distance as John returned to his previous position, as if nothing had happened. His monstrous display of strength still left them speechless. "Let's continue," John said to Adam as he took his first step onto the staircase. Adam nodded his head and followed behind quickly. He was rather used to John's display of overwhelming power, and after watching him successfully complete 20 Danshan compressions, Adam was no longer stunned silent by John's battles. A unique pressure instantly descended on John and Adam, making them both pause for a second. As John and Adam stepped onto the staircase, the crowd behind them suddenly exploded into an uproar. What the fuck just happened? Did we see that right? Did Grant, one of the 4 kings of the Bloodfiend sect, really die within 30 seconds to someone in the same cultivation realm? Another chimed up. The youths soon turned to the nearby Heavenly Lightning sect disciples, looking for more information on the mysterious youth who had shattered their reality of power. They all considered themselves impressive disciples, but compared to the scene they just witnessed, each disciple felt as small as an ant. "No more. I'm about to die. Please let me go. Stop killing me. I'm really about to die." Repeated cries of pain and desperation rang out loudly over the massive staircase, drawing the attention of those already on it. They were fully focused on the staircase in front of them and had not noticed the incredible fight that had taken place behind them recently. They struggled against the stairs with all their might, as the mysterious pressure that pressed down on them made it incredibly difficult to advance. However, each step they advanced, they could feel the pressure give great benefits to their cultivation. The mysterious pressure seemed to act as a whetstone, further increasing Ounce's cultivation, as well as solidifying it even more. Not only that, but it also tempered their will, giving an additional benefit. However, these benefits came at a cost, and that was resisting the immense pressure washing down on them. It took all their effort to resist it, and most who ascended the staircase did not make it to the top. Me, one of the core disciples of the Heavenly Lightning sect, was on the staircase as well, and her curious eyes also looked towards the source of the sound. Her eyes turned into ones of amusement, as she had witnessed such a scene before, while the eyes of the other cultivators bulged out in surprise. "Ah!" Adam once again cried out in pain as he struggled against John's grip. John had his arm gripped like a pincer, refusing to let go as he forcefully dragged Adam up the staircase. Although his own foundation was incredibly solid, he could still feel slight benefits from ascending the staircase. "How mysterious!" John couldn't help but mumble out loud as he continued further up it. The pressure was almost insignificant to John, but he could tell that it was incredibly beneficial for almost all youths who ascended it. Adam continued to kick and scream as John dragged him upwards, increasing the pressure and pain on Adam. Before long, the pain became too much, and Adam collapsed into unconsciousness. John didn't stop, however, and continued steadily ascending the staircase, Adam in tow. He passed by the other cultivators one by one, shocking each with his speed. They had been struggling against the stairs for hours, and John had passed that progress in mere minutes. "Hi there," John suddenly greeted me with a smile as he passed her by. Me returned John's greetings with a smile of her own, but didn't have the energy to respond verbally. Her eyes locked onto John's back as he passed her by. He truly is a monster. Me had thought of catching up to John with hard work, but every display of his crushed these hopes. John's pace didn't slow despite the pressure growing as he ascended further upwards, and he eventually reached the last step without too much strain. The pressure at the top was enough to make even him exert effort to move within, although he was still fairly relaxed. It pressed down on his dantian in a strange way, almost similar to his compressions. John suddenly sat down on the top step and breathed out a breath of relief as he plopped Adam on the step beside him on his back. He suddenly took out one of the weapons he had found in Grant's spatial ring. It was a battle hammer, which was quite heavy. John tested the weapon in his hands for a moment before he reached over and placed it on Adam's chest. Several minutes later, Adam slowly regained consciousness and began to scream out again from the pressure at the top step. He tried to stand up and leave, but the weight of the weapon pressing down on his chest pinned him to the earth. "John, no more," Adam cried out in protest, but his cries fell on deaf ears. John shut his eyes and focused on cultivating, as cultivating in this unique pressure was quite beneficial. Pained screams continued to ring out for several minutes before Adam once again passed out into unconsciousness. Several minutes later, "Ah, John, I'm dying." The screams started again, but John ignored them once more. While he knew Adam was in pain, it was mostly theatrics. Adam detested feeling pain and had an incredibly low tolerance towards it. However, the pain was not life-threatening, and John knew Adam was far too soft to survive in the cultivation world with his current mindset. This was both cultivation training, as well as mindset and will training. Screams. Silence. Screams. Silence. Adam continued to regain consciousness before he passed out once more. This continued for quite some time, all while John ignored the pleas. John sat there in silent meditation, when suddenly his eyes opened as he inspected Adam closely. His divine sense closely inspected Adam's dantian. "It's about time." Chapter 230, One nascent yang fruit. John reached out and removed the weapon from Adam's chest and grabbed his arm once more as he took the final step. The pressure instantly vanished, and John took a breath of relief. Even he had been quite exhausted resisting that pressure for that long. Several minutes later, Adam regained consciousness once more. "Gah!" Adam screamed out in pain. Slap. John's hand slapped Adam's face, bringing him back to his senses. "You're not in the formation anymore. Stop crying like an idiot," John said to Adam. Adam quickly came to his senses and realized John was telling the truth. Relief washed over his face before anger quickly replaced it. "What the hell is wrong with you?" Adam barked out in an angry voice. "Stop yelling and thank me instead," John replied in a calm voice. Thank you for what?" Adam once again asked in a raised voice. "For helping you advance to the core formation realm. Inspect your dantian." Adam's anger was put on hold as he quickly sent his divine sense towards his dantian. Elated surprise quickly replaced his anger at his findings. His dantian, tempered by the mysterious pressure, had advanced to the very peak of chi condensation and was ready to break through to the core formation realm. "Here," John suddenly threw a pill to Adam, which he carefully caught. "This pill was the pill I originally prepared for myself when I broke through, but I don't need it anymore. Go to the side over there and focus on breaking through." Adam eagerly nodded his head and moved over away from the staircase, as if nothing had just happened. He sat down in a meditative position and cleared his mind for a while before swallowing the pill. John stood next to Adam, acting as a protector and making sure no one disturbed his breakthrough. The core formation breakthrough was the make or break point of a cultivator's journey, and he couldn't allow Adam to be disturbed. A dense energy began to emit from Adam after swallowing the pill, and Adam focused his full power on guiding that energy to his dantian, and then compressing it. Boom! A muffled sound echoed out of Adam's body shortly after swallowing the pill. "So it started. I wonder how many compressions he will achieve," John mumbled softly as he watched Adam ascend. Based on what he knew of Adam, he would guess 3 to 4 compressions would be his maximum, as that was an above-average talent. 5 to 6 compressions was the realm of incredibly gifted talents, while 7 to 8 was reserved for those who stood at the top of the cultivation world. John assumed that even talents like the Bloodfiend sect emperors would be 5 to 6 compressions. While he had achieved many more compressions, an anomaly like John couldn't be compared on the same scale. Boom. Another muffled boom echoed out, followed shortly after by another, and another. The booms continued for some time, before the energy finally began to fade from Adam's body as he drew his aura back into himself. His eyes slowly opened, full of delight as he instantly inspected his newly formed core dantian. 6 compressions, that's truly not bad, John said to Adam with a smile. 6 compressions truly was impressive, and such a breakthrough would surely help Adam to grow fast in the future. John had an inkling that the 6 compressions Adam reached was due to the staircase pressure, which helped him reach a height far above his revealed talent so far. Of course it's not bad. 6 compressions is the sign of a genius, Adam replied, and began to laugh loudly like a madman. John shook his head once more at Adam's shameless antics before he patted him on the back. Now that this is done, let's head inside. I have a suspicion that a certain someone is inside this temple, and I need to pay them a visit, John said. Adam's laughing face instantly darkened as a serious look appeared on it. He nodded his head in agreement. MHM, we need to get revenge for Russell. Let's go, Adam replied. The two of them started walking towards the temple's entrance, which was a large open arch at its very center. The arch was 100 yards high and displayed exquisite craftsmanship on its edges. They quickly set foot inside. An ancient aura washed over them, making them feel incredibly small. The entrance of the temple revealed a large hallway, which was surprisingly simple. The walls were smooth and marble white, and the hallway only pointed in one direction. There were no side halls, and so John and Adam ventured down the main path. The main path stretched forward for nearly a mile, before John and Adam finally saw the end of the hallway, illuminated brightly by an outside light source. John and Adam picked up their pace and eventually found themselves at the end of the hall. They both walked forward, surprise on their face, as they saw what lay before them. The massive temple had given way to an incredibly large and open expanse, nearly 8 miles wide. The ceiling of the temple high above acted as a false sky, although John and Adam struggled to tell the difference between it and the real sky. Clouds moved above realistically, and the sun, moon, and stars did the same. The expanse before them was open terrain, which appeared incredibly natural. Fields stretched for miles, in which flowers bloomed vibrantly. Trees lined the fields occasionally, forming small pockets of forests. Hills rose high, and valleys descended deep, making the room they stepped into feel as if it was outside. In the distance, several miles away, John and Adam spotted a large object jutting high into the sky, nearly touching the temple's roof. It appeared to be a pitch-black monolith, and was the only object that looked out of place in the expanse before them. Well, this was unexpected, Adam suddenly commented. John nodded his head in agreement, and he pointed to the monolith in the very center of the massive room. That's the only thing of note here, so let's proceed towards it and see if it reveals anything. Adam agreed, and the two quickly began to proceed forward towards it. As soon as they stepped into the room, both John and Adam felt an unusual energy was over them, pressing them down to the ground. John frowned as he tried to use his newly established core formation cultivation to fly upwards against the energy. While he had not done so yet, flying was incredibly natural to a cultivator once they reached this realm. However, he was unable to do so, no matter how hard he tried. Seems like there's some sort of formation restricting flight. No matter, we'll just walk then. There were no animals or beasts in the area, slightly surprising John. He had expected to fight his way towards the monolith. But his progress was proceeding incredibly quickly. Other disciples of the other sects were occasionally spotted, searching through the forests, fields, valleys, and hills for any and all opportunities that may exist. John ignored these disciples, as none belonged to the Bloodfiend sect, and proceeded forward steadily. Suddenly, something out of the corner of his eye caught his attention, and John paused for a moment to get a better look. There was a dense expanse of vegetation before him, but a tinge of orange and red in the otherwise green vegetation caught his interest. He turned towards the source of the color, pushing through the thick vegetation to get a better look. After walking through the thicket, John spotted what the color was. His eyes lit up in delight at his discovery. There were 10 fruits growing on a short tree, not more than 6 feet high. They each emitted a dark orange and red color and were about the size of a grape. A blazing aura emanated from them. A nascent yang fruit tree. Adam's eyes lit up as well as he spotted the tree. "Ha, we've hit the jackpot once again," Adam replied with an enthusiastic tone. Nascent yang fruit trees absorbed pure yang qi from the air and refined it into the fruit. While pure yang qi was far more powerful than John or Adam could handle at the moment, the fruit distilled it into trace amounts, making it edible. The fruit was mainly beneficial for fire users, as it bolstered their fire qi and pushed their fire comprehension to the next level. However, lightning was also a yang-based element, and the fruits could also serve the same purpose. "Help me!" A cry for aid suddenly sounded out, catching the attention of John and Adam. They soon spotted the source of the sound, which was a girl laying on the ground, several dozen yards away from the fruits. Blood seemed to be seeping into the ground below her body, revealing her to be injured. Her face looked up towards the two of them, revealing her to be incredibly beautiful. Adam's heart stopped in his chest, before he suddenly puffed his chest out in a strong and prideful manner. "Don't worry, my lady. With me here, your safety is guaranteed." John rolled his eyes as he watched Adam rapidly dash over towards the girl to give her aid. John shook his head in disappointment, and he suddenly raised his finger. Lightning danced on it for a moment, before a lightning ruin blessed out of his finger, piercing directly towards the girl on the ground. Boom! The lightning ruin slammed into the girl's body, instantly destroying it. "Aya!" Adam screamed out in surprise and backed away quickly, before he quickly turned towards John. "What the hell did you kill her for?" Adam yelled out, however. His anger quickly faded as a sinister laugh suddenly sounded out behind him. "Jej, you actually managed to detect that the girl was a corpse puppet. Not bad." A boy suddenly stepped out from behind a nearby boulder, revealing himself to John and Adam. His cultivation was at the mid-core formation realm, revealing himself to have great power. His blood-red robe billowed slightly in the breeze. John looked towards the boy with unmoved eyes. "Seems like I can add another Bloodfiend corpse to my growing collection." Chapter 232, Corpse King John had noticed that something was wrong as soon as the girl cried out for help. There was a lingering scent of blood in the air that was too thick to belong to just the girl alone. Not only that, but there were faint signs of battle that had taken place in the nearby area. Although they had been covered up pretty well, John still noticed the signs. As such, John had sent his divine sense out towards the girl to inspect her. While she looked very lifelike, John was able to notice that there was no soul aura emanating from her. All living things had a soul, and so the girl was not what she appeared to be. John's instincts were extremely sharp thanks to his strong soul and unique body, and so he trusted it as he sent a lightning blast towards the girl. His decision had been the correct one, as the girl was quickly revealed to be a trap. "You've been baiting these fruits, I assume?" John asked the newcomer. "Jej, you're correct. I've been here for some time and have managed to kill quite a few disciples who tried to take the fruit. Now that you're here, you'll be joining them as well," the boy replied with a wicked smile on his face. His eyes stared at John as if he was prey. John frowned at this news, as some of those victims most likely belonged to the heavenly lightning sect. The boy's robes and cultivation pointed to the fact that he was one of the 4 kings, or 3 emperors. John wanted to know who he was. "Who are you? Are you a king or an emperor?" John asked the boy. "Jej, you're not worthy of fighting against an emperor with your measly cultivation level. Even against me, the corpse king, you're still not worthy. Die." The boy instantly lashed out at John, sending a powerful chi blast towards him, ignoring Adam in the process. He could tell that John was the real threat here. Ugh. Adam screamed out in panic as he rapidly dashed away from the fight. He finally reached a safe enough distance and turned to watch the spectacle to come. If he got caught up in the blasts, he would take quite a bit of damage. A finger pointed directly at the oncoming chi attack. Lightning ruin. Boom. Both attacks collided in midair, creating a powerful explosion that destroyed the nearby area. John frowned as he looked towards the fruits. Although they were still fine, the battlefield was still too close to the fruits for comfort, and they could accidentally be destroyed. Limiter of speed. Thunderflash steps. John instantly activated his 2 fastest movement techniques, pushing his speed to the limit. He dashed forward quickly, appearing like a blur. He reached the nascent yang fruit tree in an instant and quickly chopped the tree down, storing it in his palace realm. He didn't want to destroy such an amazing tree, but he didn't have the time to play around and risk their destruction. Die. The Corpse King shouted out in rage as he saw John take the fruits. He was planning on taking them after baiting enough victims, but John had stolen it while completely ignoring him. Such an act was unforgivable. A corpse puppet suddenly appeared next to the Corpse King, then another, and another. Soon, 3 corpses stood next to him, each brimming with the power of an early core formation cultivator. They were much more powerful than the corpse puppet that had been laid out as a trap. The corpses suddenly all raised their hands, as well as the Corpse King himself. Powerful balls of blood red chi began to build up within them, and before long, each was holding an incredibly powerful chi ball in their hands. Combine. The Corpse King controlled all the puppets to move their hands towards his. The 4 balls of powerful blood red chi quickly combined into one, making it grow exponentially in power. As soon as the attacks combined, the incredibly powerful attack was quickly sent outwards towards John. It destroyed whatever it touched as it rapidly sailed towards him. John scoffed at the attack. While it was powerful, it wasn't that fast, and he would easily be able to dodge it. Ahem. John quickly looked downwards as he noticed something grab his feet. A hand had pushed through the earth below him, grabbing his foot and holding him down. Another hand broke through the earth, grabbing his other foot, as it became evident that the Corpse King had controlled another corpse to hold him in place. Not bad, John mumbled. Such a combined attack truly was impressive, and would work on almost all cultivators at the mid-core formation realm and below. The hands of the corpse were incredibly durable, and essence cultivators would need a short period of time to charge up an attack to break them. However, bang! Bang! 2 loud bangs echoed out as John utilized his full body strength to break free from the hands holding him down. The hands were incredibly tough, and it had taken his full body power to do so, but John had managed to instantly break free from the ensnarement. What? The Corpse King's eyes widened in surprise as he watched John instantly break free from his carefully laid trap and quickly dash to the side. The chi attack sailed past John, colliding with the earth far behind him. Boom! An incredibly massive explosion radiated outwards in the distance, destroying all in its path. All disciples in the massive room instantly looked up towards the explosion, fear filling their faces as they watched it. If they were hit with such an explosion, they would die without leaving a body behind. The explosion faded, revealing a crater dozens of yards deep and 100 yards wide. John's eyes widened slightly as he stared at it. That was actually a really powerful attack. If it hit me head-on, even I would have taken a bit of damage. This one attack revealed the Bloodfiend Sect Kings to not be as simple as John had assumed. His battle with Grant was incredibly easy, and so John did not give them any respect. However, the Corpse King's attack revealed that they were incredibly powerful. If he's this strong, I wonder how strong the Blood Emperor is. John quickly put such thoughts aside as he once again focused on the Corpse King. The Corpse King was breathing slightly heavily, indicating that the attack he had just unleashed took quite a toll on him. Lightning Ruin. John quickly pointed his finger and unleashed a lightning ruin. piercing directly towards the corpse king. HMPH. The corpse king scoffed at the attack and unleashed even more corpse puppets. Soon, 7 corpse puppets were dashing towards the attack. Their fists punched out. Boom! The lightning ruin collided with the corpse puppets, knocking them backwards a few yards. However, they were all intact, showing their incredible durability. My corpse puppets are incredibly durable and have durability similar to peak chi condensation grade weapons. You have no chance of destroying them, the corpse king shouted out towards John with a voice full of gloating. Is that so? Then let's put that to the test, John replied. Supreme battle art. An incredibly powerful aura instantly exploded off John's body, shocking the corpse king greatly. John quickly dashed towards the nearest corpse puppet and swung his scythe outwards with all his might. Pang! His scythe collided with the fist of the corpse, and a metallic sound rang out from the collision. John's scythe, augmented by his powerful body, sliced into the fist of the corpse and traveled halfway up its arm before coming to a halt. Both John and the corpse king raised their eyebrows in surprise, and John quickly dashed backwards. The corpse king was surprised that John was able to destroy the arm of one of his puppets. They were incredibly durable, and even powerful essence attacks normally didn't scratch them. On the other hand, John closely inspected his scythe's blade. A small chip had appeared on the blade, indicating that it had taken damage from the collision. While his scythe was a powerful chi condensation weapon, it was still just that. Fighting against such powerful puppets revealed the weakness of the scythe, which was its durability against more powerful objects. John frowned as he thought of what to do. I could unleash divine reaping scythes to easily cut down these puppets, but doing so would waste precious essence chi. If I can't fight them with my scythe, then I'll just use my body instead. John suddenly put his scythe away, surprising the corpse king. He began to laugh sinisterly. Giving up already? I told you can't destroy my puppets. Jejej. John looked at the corpse king with a calm face. His powerful body aura continued to surge out wildly. I could, but it would require using more energy than it's worth. In that case, I think I'll just beat you to death with my fists, and then the puppets will no longer be an issue. Chapter 233, Losing control. The corpse king began to laugh at John's ridiculous comment. While John had shown surprising combat prowess, he was still an entire minor realm lower than the corpse king. Everyone knew fighting above your realm was incredibly difficult. As for killing above your realm, that was essentially impossible. Jejej, you could barely fight evenly with your weapon. What can you do, Bearhen? Boom. John dashed forward incredibly quickly, upheaving the earth behind him from the force of his steps. He appeared like a blur of lightning as he sped directly towards the corpse king. His speed was incredibly fast, shocking the corpse king. His eyes widened slightly as he formed a hand seal. The 2 closest puppets to the corpse king retreated to stand directly in front of him, forming a solid defensive wall. John reached the puppets in an instant and punched out with all his might. The puppets punched out as well, looking to counter John's attack. At the last moment, John twisted his shoulders sideways at an awkward angle, narrowly dodging the fist attacks of the puppets. While the puppets were incredibly durable, they were not all that quick. His fist punched straight towards the first puppet's chest. Bang! An incredibly powerful punch landed solidly on the puppet's chest, sending it flying backwards like a broken kite. While the puppet took minimal damage, it was launched backwards hundreds of yards, being removed from the fight in an instant. John felt a slight wave of pain rush up his hand from the attack, but took no damage either. How tough. Utilizing his momentum to his advantage, John spun around and landed a solid kick on the other puppet, who was still recovering from missing its attack. Bang! His kick landed center mass, once again delivering an incredibly powerful blow to the second puppet. The puppet was launched upwards and backwards even farther than the first, nearly half a mile away, tumbling head over heels in the sky before it landed. The ground shattered beneath the puppet's body as it violently landed, and the puppet's body carved a long trench into the ground before it finally came to a stop. John's head instantly snapped towards the nearby corpse king, who no longer had any puppets between him and John. John pushed off the ground once again, speeding towards the corpse king like a blur. The corpse king narrowed his eyes as he stared at John. John was an anomaly, as he was both an essence and body cultivator, but he didn't seem to have compromised power on either one. His combat prowess was incredibly shocking, and the corpse king could no longer hold back. The corpse king scoffed as he formed a hand seal. A flash of light appeared before John as a corpse puppet appeared before the corpse king. John's eyes narrowed as he stared at the puppet, its features still obscured by the fading light. It displayed overwhelming power when compared to the other puppets, and had an odd shape as well. It was incredibly large, and was headless. John's eyes grew with rage as he considered a possibility, and the fading light confirmed that possibility to be true. This corpse was provided to me by Damon, the Blood Emperor. I hope you enjoy my trump card, Jejej, the corpse king said in a sinister laugh as he revealed his trump card. The fading light revealed Russell's headless corpse, standing tall before John. John instantly recognized the aura, as well as the innate variant body that Russell had, making it easy to recognize. John's rage instantly snapped his mind and reasoning, as he unconsciously activated his full power. Immortal Asura transformation art. Heavenly lightning domain. Without even thinking about it, John unleashed his full power. It was as if his mind had become possessed, with the only desire being to kill the corpse king. The corpse king's smug face instantly turned to complete shock as he felt the overwhelming power emanate from John's body. He had expected John to tremble before the might of the puppet, but his reaction was the complete opposite. He took a step backwards, both in fear and from the force of the aura spreading outwards. It was unlike anything he had felt before, especially from a fellow core formation cultivator. It was as if a bloodthirsty demon god stood directly before him. His bloodlust and sinister aura was shocking even to the corpse king, who grew up his entire life around such things. Die. A sinister growl escaped John's mouth as he dashed towards the corpse king. The earth behind him exploded from the power of his steps, and he appeared next to the corpse king in an instant. His speed was more than double the speed he displayed earlier in the fight. Shit. The corpse king grunted in shock as he hurriedly moved to defend. He didn't know what was going on, but he knew he could not defeat his enemy anymore. John's fist sailed directly towards the corpse king, its power causing the air to ripple and boom as it sailed through it. A powerful body suddenly appeared directly in front of the corpse king. Boom. John's fist collided with Russell's body, creating a shockwave of pure power and causing the ground beneath them to shatter. Russell's body instantly went airborne as it sailed far into the far distance, unable to withstand a single blow of John's full power. Slight cracks appeared on Russell's chest from the force of the blow, shocking the corpse king senseless. Die. John growled out once more as he pointed a finger and sent a lightning ruin directly towards the corpse king. At the same time, lightning nodes sprung up in the air behind the corpse king, unleashing a devastating barrage of lightning. Panic appeared on the corpse king's face as he formed new hand seals. The remaining puppets that lingered in the area all sped towards John. As they reached him, they began to glow for an instant before. Boom! Each puppet exploded from within, catching John in a series of incredibly powerful blasts. The corpse king had sacrificed all his puppets in an attempt to kill John. At the same time, the corpse king formed one last hand seal, and his body suddenly disappeared from sight. Bang! John's lightning ruin and lightning domain attacks exploded on the ground where the corpse king had just been, but hit nothing but earth. The puppet explosions slowly faded, revealing John standing within. His clothes were tattered from the force of the blasts, and there were slight cuts and bruises on his body. He had suffered a slight amount of damage from the incredibly powerful explosion, but it was nothing serious, as he had been in his most powerful state during the explosions. His cold and ruthless eyes quickly surveyed the nearby area, searching for the corpse king. However, he was unsuccessful, as the Corpse King had already disappeared. He spread out his divine sense to the maximum range it could reach, but was unable to detect any traces of the Corpse King. Fuck! John screamed out in rage, as he had let the Corpse King leave with his life. He punched his fist down furiously onto the earth below, causing it to explode outwards. A massive boom echoed out, filling the entire expanse with its deafening boom. Adam suddenly approached John after the exploding earth settled, his hand holding a certain object. Nearly a mile away, Russell's corpse puppet lay on the ground, quite damaged from John's attack. Suddenly, a rune lit up on its chest, and a flash of light appeared. The flash faded, revealing the heavily breathing Corpse King. Fear still filled his face as he looked downwards with a frustrated look. Russell's corpse was now completely shattered like clay, leaving only fragments of it left. Got him, Nit. This amazing corpse was the only one durable enough to hold that spatial rune my master gave me, and now it's ruined because I used it. Fuck that kid. I don't know what's up with him, but I'll have my revenge. I must obtain his corpse to make into a corpse puppet. The Corpse King had lost out greatly in his fight, losing all his puppets, including Russell's. He had sacrificed it to escape, and now his combat prowess was incredibly low. He relied on puppets to do his fighting, and no longer had them to rely on. His face once more ignited in rage, as he cursed John again. I'll kill that kid, if it's the last thing I do. Is that so? A rage-filled voice suddenly sounded out behind the Corpse King, shocking him greatly. He knew he fully escaped the fight, and should be alone right now. The familiar voice sent a chill down his spine, and he quickly turned his head to see John staring directly at him, just mere feet away from him. The Corpse King had expended all his chi on causing the puppets to explode, and had no chi to fight or be wary of his surroundings. John suddenly noticed the completely shattered corpse of Russell beneath the Corpse King, igniting his fury and rage once more. Die! A fist punched out, landing on the defenseless Corpse King's face. No. His short pleas were instantly snuffed out as John's fist connected with his head, exploding it like a watermelon. Blood and brain rained out as the Corpse King was finally killed. John stood there motionless as the blood rained down on him. After a moment, his rage-filled eyes slowly faded back to normal as he looked at the shattered corpse of Russell. I'm sorry, brother. I couldn't even give you a proper burial. Adam walked alongside John with an item in hand and put his other hand on John's shoulder. You did all you could. You can't blame yourself, Adam comforted John. John nodded his head and collected the shattered pieces of Russell's corpse, storing it in his spatial ring. I'll give you a proper burial once we're back at the Heavenly Lightning Sect. A deep sigh escaped John's lips as the overwhelming power faded from his body. His body began to ache from the strain of the power he had used, but it was nothing he couldn't handle. Thankfully, his body was greatly strengthened due to the mysterious blood-red fruit, allowing him to handle the Immortal Asura transformation art for a longer time, with less drawbacks afterwards. At least you managed to put a spirit mark and track him with that item of yours, or he would have permanently escaped, John said to Adam as he sat down on the ground heavily. During their fight, Adam had stealthily attached a spirit mark to the Corpse King, in the small chance that he escaped. Luckily, it had worked out, allowing John to instantly track down the Corpse King once more. The Corpse King was far too busy fighting John, or he would have noticed such a thing. John stared at the Corpse King's body, slightly upset with himself. In his blinded rage, he had completely destroyed the head of the Corpse King. The blood essence of all human cultivators dwelled in the center of the forehead, between the brows. John's punch had destroyed it completely, making him unable to absorb it. We rest for a few hours, and then we'll proceed forward once more. John closed his eyes and recovered, before standing up. A determined look appeared on his face once more. If the Corpse King is here, I'm sure the Blood Emperor is as well. Let's go. Chapter 234, Second Level. Chapter 234, Second Level. John fully recovered his expended essence chi before proceeding forwards. The Corpse King's power was quite shocking, and he was only a king. The emperors were even more powerful, and John wanted to be sure that he had enough power to cut them down. He inspected his beast blood essence reserves. They were growing lower, due to his incredible breakthrough earlier. I probably have about 30 minutes at most, using my Immortal Asura transformation art before I run out of blood essence. I need to be careful how I use it. John shook such thoughts from his head and proceeded towards the monolith in the distance. They reached it before long, finding no trouble along the way. John thought this was quite odd, but didn't give it much more thought. As they finally approached the pitch-black monolith, the two of them realized it was much larger than initially expected. The monolith stretched over a mile high into the sky and was 100 yards wide and long. It was completely smooth, and the only thing of note was an opening at its base, a dozen yards wide and tall. John and Adam walked towards the opening and stopped just outside of it. John sent his divine sense down into it, making sure it was safe to enter. "It's a staircase leading downwards. I don't detect any danger," John said to Adam as he proceeded downwards. Adam quickly followed behind. The staircase was pitch black, with no light source. Flicker. Lightning suddenly danced over John's hands, serving as a light as they proceeded downwards. The staircase winded downwards for nearly half a mile, before they finally reached flat ground. "It seems like there are a few levels to this temple," Adam commented. "Seems so," John replied, his attention fully focused ahead of him. Before him stood an open area of pure whiteness. Every direction he looked, John could only spot an endless whiteness stretching into the far distance. There were no trees, no grass, nothing, just an endless expanse of white. Ahem. John noticed a group of cultivators standing off to the side, discussing something. It consisted of members of the Heavenly Lighting Sect, Divine Soul Sect, and Supreme Battle Sect. John quickly walked towards them, curious as to why they had gathered up seemingly around nothing. The other disciples quickly noticed John and greeted him. They did not know of his previous feats as they had entered the temple first, and so did not look at him with wary eyes. "Why are you all gathered here?" John asked the group. One of the Divine Soul Sect disciples spoke up. "We're trying to get to that," the disciple said as he pointed his finger in a certain direction. John's vision followed the finger and soon spotted something about half a mile away. There seemed to be another gathering of disciples, as well as several glowing sources of light. John also noticed another smooth black monolith near the group in the distance. It was the only thing of note in this expanse of whiteness. "What is that? And why aren't you joining the other disciples over there?" John asked curiously. An inner disciple from the Heavenly Lightning Sect stepped forward and answered. "As soon as we step forward from this spot, there's a restrictive energy that stops us. However, it didn't stop any of the disciples in the distance. We've discussed this matter seriously amongst ourselves. And the only commonality we can find is that none of us here ascended the mysterious staircase outside. We all went around it. Did you ascend the staircase?" the disciple suddenly asked. "Yep," John replied quickly. "In that case, can you proceed forward and let us know if our theory is true?" the disciple replied. John inspected the area and found no danger. He took a step forward and felt a pressure wash over him. However, it did not restrict him, and he easily took several more steps forward. The disciples watching sighed at the sight. "It's as we assumed. We must head back outside and ascend the stairs fully, or we cannot proceed further." The disciples soon turned around and left, leaving only John and Adam behind. Adam walked alongside John with a proud expression. "Ha, I knew those stairs were special for some reason. It's a good thing I ascended them. My forward thinking is exemplary." John rolled his eyes at Adam's shameless antics, and he proceeded to walk forward once more and reached the next group of disciples quite quickly. The disciples noticed the arrival of the newcomers and nodded at them before turning their attention to the objects in front of them once more. John looked at the objects curiously as well, as it was the only thing of note on this level. There were 5 arches, around 10 feet tall. They were made of a mysterious, lustrous material and had profound glowing runes all over the surface. Within the arches, light swirled and glowed, revealing them to be some sort of formation. The light instantly reminded John of the Pocket Realm Arch, as it was quite similar. John soon noticed several heavenly lightning sect disciples standing nearby, including June, Hartley, and Mason. He walked over to them and was greeted with warm smiles by Hartley and June, while Mason ignored him. "Do any of you know what these things are?" John asked curiously. "These 5 arches seem to be 5 different trials," the usually quite June replied. "Trials, how do you know this?" John asked. "Some of us have already entered, myself included. It takes you to a combat area which tests your combat prowess. If you pass, you are rewarded with something. The rewards are different for everyone," June replied. "Is that so? Which one did you enter?" John asked curiously. "Yes, I entered the second arch from the left. The combat trial was quite challenging, but I managed to pass it eventually." John's eyes trailed towards the arches once more, and he studied them in more detail. Each arch emanated a different aura, varying in power and profundity. The leftmost one emanated a gentle aura, while the one to its right was a bit more powerful and frightening. The center arch emanated quite a shocking power, brimming with a strangely terrifying aura. The next one, the fourth from the left, swirled with incredible power, dwarfing the previous one. Not only that, but the sheer profundity of the power was nearly overwhelming. It was as if it was an ominous warning sign for no one to enter unless they desired death. Lastly, on the far right, the arch there emanated an absolutely horrifying power. Not only was the power overwhelming, but all those who looked at it could only think of one word: death. It was as if their life would end the moment they entered, and none dared to do so. John's eyes trailed towards the top of the arches, and he soon spotted small writing carved into the arches, written in the ancient language that only he could read. The leftmost one read, "Talent, average." John raised his eyebrows slightly as he read this. It seems like it truly is a combat trial used to test talent. He looked to the second arch, talent, gifted. The third arch, talent, genius. The fourth arch, talent, heavenly prodigy. And finally, John's eyes trailed towards the fifth arch, talent, divine. "Has anyone entered the other arches yet?" John asked curiously. June nodded her head. "Yes, all but the far right arch have been entered. Most entered the first or second arch, as their auras were much less dreadful. After passing the trial and exiting, we've been able to determine that the trials get harder as you proceed towards the rightmost arches. Also, it appears as if you can only enter a trial once, at which point all other trials reject you." John nodded his head at June's assessment. Based on the writing, this truly was the case. "Who entered the fourth arch?" John asked. The aura from the fourth arch was powerful and profound enough to give even him pause, let alone others. "Quite a few of the most talented disciples from each sect have entered. One of our sect's direct disciples has entered, as well as a few other powerful members from other sects. However, none have exited, no matter how much time has progressed," June replied. She paused for a moment before continuing. "The Divine Soul Sect has a unique soul item which can tell which disciples have perished or not. Each disciple has one, and they have confirmed that all the disciples of their sect that entered that arch have died, except one." "Oh, which one? The Soul Sage?" John asked curiously. June nodded her head in affirmation. "Yes, he entered just a bit ago and is still alive. However, other than him, all the others have died, and I'm afraid it's the same for the direct disciple of our sect that entered," June confirmed. John's eyes turned towards the nearby black monolith, which was just 100 yards behind the arches. A brief inspection revealed no opening like the first monolith, confusing John slightly. It appeared as if it was just a black slab of rock. John looked around for a moment, before once again turning back to June. "Why don't I see any Bloodfiend sect disciples here?" June thought the question strange, as she didn't know why John would care about them. She had not heard of what had happened yet. "Several of them arrived a bit ago. They acted quite haughty and even threatened to drive us away. However, our numbers are superior, so they didn't dare to do so. A few of them entered the second arch, while the others entered the third arch after hearing about the dangers of the fourth one, June replied. Which bloodfiend sect disciples entered the arches? John suddenly asked with a cold tone. The tonal shift surprised June slightly, but she answered quickly. 2 of the Blood Kings entered the second arch, while the 3 Blood Emperors all entered the third arch, June replied. Boom! John's aura instantly erupted outward, washing over all the nearby disciples as his cold, rage-filled eyes stared directly at the third arch. Chapter 235. Waiting John's sudden, powerful, rage-filled and bloodlust-heavy aura suddenly washed over all the nearby disciples, shocking them greatly. There were several incredibly powerful disciples in the nearby area, and yet all of them felt shocked by this aura. Not only was it incredibly powerful, but it was also incredibly sinister. They quickly inspected who the aura came from, and all were shocked to find it came from John. His cultivation was only at the early core formation realm, yet he was making even the mid-core formation realm cultivators in the area sweat with nervousness. They had no idea why he had unleashed such an aura, but it was nearly overwhelming. John's outward explosion of rage was quickly pulled inwards as he slightly calmed himself. However, those looking at him became even more frightful. He turned to June and spoke up once more. How long did it take you to leave your trial? John asked in a calm but cold voice. June paused for a moment, completely surprised by John's sudden burst of emotion. About an hour, June replied. John's eyes turned to the third arch once more. The third arch is harder than the second, and the 3 emperors just entered. That should give me a bit of time. Adam, John suddenly called out. What is it? Adam asked. Despite John's intense outburst, Adam was standing right next to him, unmoved. He knew the reason for John's outburst and was feeling the same rage himself. Is it in your power to build a formation around the third arch, making sure no one leaves? John asked with a cold voice. Adam was slightly surprised by the question, but quickly understood John's intentions. If I do, you'll be trapped as well, Adam replied, making sure John knew the risks. That's fine. Are you able to do it? John once again asked. Adam thought about it for a moment, taking a note of the items he had at his disposal before responding. I do know of one such formation. It's similar to the one I used to block Jason from escaping. However, I will need to use many more spirit stones as a power source to activate it, Adam replied. That's fine. I'll reimburse you for any spirit stones you use, just make the formation. Adam shook his head in disappointment. We're brothers, and we are both here to avenge our fallen brother. It'll be my honor to help you eliminate Damon, Adam replied in a sincere tone, his attitude quite different from normal. John nodded his head in approval. However, with how strong you and the Blood Emperors are, I can only make it last for 30 minutes. Once that time is up, it'll fade. Also, if you allow them to repeatedly attack the wall several times with full power attacks, it'll crumple also, Adam elaborated on his formation. That's fine. 30 minutes is more than enough, John confirmed. His blood essence reserves would only last 30 minutes anyways, so he would need to finish the fight before then. Adam patted John on the back before he got to work. The arches were all spaced around 100 yards from each other, making the total area around 500 yards including the width of the arches. There were plenty of disciples in front of the first and second arches, deciding on if they wanted to enter or not. Everyone, scram, John suddenly commanded in a loud voice as he walked towards the arches. The eyes of all the disciples turned to John, confused as to what he was doing. Some shouted out in protest, thinking he was trying to monopolize the arches. You can't do that, one Divine Soul sect disciple protested. That's right, these trials are not for you alone, another protested. John's cold and ruthless eyes locked on those youths, instantly silencing them. They each swallowed deeply in fear, unwilling to say another word. John's sinister aura once again radiated outwards. I'll say this once more. Scram now or suffer the consequences, John commanded again. While he seemed uncaring, John did not want any of the other disciples to get caught in the crossfire. He wanted a fight between him and Damon alone. The other disciples were still upset about this, but decided not to protest. They could tell that John was in a foul mood, and his overwhelming aura told them his threat was real. Despite being in the early core formation realm, none of the disciples present wanted to fight him in his current state. The area quickly cleared out, and the disciples stood off to the far side, watching what John and Adam were doing. Flash. A flash of light appeared at the first gate, revealing a youth who had just come out. They had a look of delight on their face, as they had clearly passed the trial. They held a unique-looking sword, clearly the reward they had been given. The disciples' delight quickly turned to confusion as they looked around. They noticed the empty area, as well as the sinister-looking John, and quickly fled towards their respective sect gathered in the distance. John frowned as he had inspected the youth that left. When the youth left, they had a lingering trace of the aura from the gate they had entered, acting as a sort of shield. While the power quickly faded away, it was still not what John wanted to see. I was going to attack Damon as soon as he left the arch, but it seems as though there's a temporary protection for those who leave. It was probably done for this exact reason, so those who entered didn't get snuck upon and killed for their rewards. John shook his head in disappointment, but the plans didn't change. If he couldn't kill Damon with a sneak attack, then he would just kill him head-on. Flash. 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 More flashes from the first and second arch appeared, revealing more youths that had passed. They were quite injured, but also had looks of delight on their faces. Similar to the first youth, they quickly noticed the odd atmosphere and retreated to their fellow sect members. John, what is going on? A voice suddenly sounded out behind John. John turned around and looked straight at the nearby June. Damon, the Blood Emperor, killed Russell. John got straight to the point. June's face lit up with surprise and then quickly anger. This was her first time hearing of this. Those bastards! Let me help you kill them! Her temper instantly ignited. John was slightly surprised to see such reactions from June, as she was unusually emotionless. However, it seemed as if she had grown somewhat attached to the Heavenly Lightning sect and its disciples. However, John shook his head, rejecting her offer. He's mine to kill. Besides, your battle prowess is too weak, John replied, not mincing any words. June's cultivation was at the early core formation realm, while Damon and the other emperors were at the mid-core formation realm. Despite her impressive combat prowess within the same realm, June's cultivation was just too low at the moment. June grit her teeth in silence. After a moment, she sighed and turned around. Good luck. John nodded his head at June's words of encouragement, as he once again turned his attention towards the arches. Several more flashes of light appeared as more disciples left the trials. Eventually, the flashes died down, revealing that only the Bloodfiend sect disciples were left, as they had entered last. John sat down on the ground, a few dozen yards away from the third arch, and calmed his mind as he focused on maintaining his peak state. He appeared like a pressurized cauldron, ready to burst at a moment's notice. Adam walked next to John, patting him on the shoulder. The formation is all set up. You have 30 minutes to complete your fight. Adam wanted to help, but was powerless to do so. He was too weak in a direct fight, and his only offensive formation strong enough to help at the moment was the strange broken disc. However, that had been attached to Hunter when he left with the spatial talisman, taking away his one way to help. Thanks. John replied with a short thanks, before once again closing his eyes. At the same time, the reason for John's sudden actions spread out throughout the crowd behind him. They finally understood why John had done such a thing, but shook their heads in confusion. While he does appear powerful, he's only at the early core formation realm. There's no way he can beat a Blood Emperor, a Supreme Battle Sect youth commented. You're right. We're about to watch him die, Mason suddenly commented. He was more than happy to see John perish, as it would only elevate his own importance within the sect. John continued to sit there for nearly an hour in focused meditation. Flash. John's eyes snapped open as a flash of light appeared at the third gate, revealing a cultivator clad in blood-red robes standing before it. Chapter 236, 1 against 5, the cultivator stepped out of the arch, a pleased smile evident on their face. Long, pitch-black hair draped down her shoulders, while she wore a tight and revealing outfit. Her face was quite beautiful, but in a pure seductive way and almost evil way. Her eyes quickly looked around, noticing the unusually empty space. She noticed John sitting alone, a few dozen yards ahead of her. His eyes burned with a cold rage, displeasing her greatly. "I should kill you for looking at me like that," the girl said to John. She was Azalea, one of the 3 blood emperors. Flash. Flash. 2 more flashes occurred at almost the same time at the third arch, revealing 2 more youths draped in blood-red robes. Both were boys of similar builds, although one had short brown hair and a slightly ugly and wicked-looking face, while the other had blood-red hair and reddish-tinted eyes. His face was quite handsome, but his sharp gaze and features gave him quite an intimidating look. They noticed the 3 of them standing in the same spot, having exited the trial at the same time, revealing their similar combat prowesses. "You actually beat us here, Azalea. You must have gotten lucky," the brown-haired boy stated in a displeased voice. He was Kyulin, the Sword Emperor. It was rumored that he could cut down anyone in the same realm with just a single attack of his sword. "Or I'm just stronger than why," Azalea responded, but a powerful aura suddenly washed over them. The 3 emperors looked over to the source of the aura, John. John's eyes were staring directly at the boy with blood-red hair, his eyes growing with a burning rage. "Do you know him?" Azalea asked Damon. "No, never seen him. But the way he looks at me displeases me. I think I'll kill him and refine his blood for my battle arts. It seems as if he has quite a strong lifeblood," Damon replied as he looked at John in a nonchalant manner. John's aura was powerful, but his cultivation was only at the early core formation realm. Outside the formation Adam had set up, all the disciples of the various sects were looking inwards, ready to witness what was about to happen. Adam grimaced as he saw the 3 blood emperors come out at the same time, especially when he noticed their cultivation levels. "They're all in the late core formation realm now," one Divine Soul sect youth commented. "They must have been rewarded with something to advance their cultivation within the trials," another said. "Well, I was looking forward to a good fight, but now it will just be a slaughter," a Supreme Battle sect boy spoke up. There was no hope for John in their eyes. His only fate was to be instantly cut down. The faces of the Heavenly Lightning sect disciples turned into ones of worry. They knew John was strong and could jump 1 level, but 2 was something he had never shown. Not only that, but there were 3 emperors, the strongest disciples of the Bloodfiend sect. Their battle prowess was surely the highest of all disciples within the same realm. They had no idea how John was going to get out of this one. Standing to the side of the crowd some distance away, a girl stood there with a slightly apprehensive look on her face. No one in the crowd noticed her, as if she was invisible to them. Her lavender hair fell down to her waist, and her crystal blue eyes looked straight at John's back. She had only just met the boy before her and didn't even know him, but for some reason she felt worried for him. Power began to build up on her hand, before it slowly faded away. "I'll wait and see what happens. He doesn't strike me as someone who would throw his life away." Back in the formation, John's aura continued to rapidly climb, as if a sleeping demon god was finally awakening. 3 of them came out at the same time, and they're all in the late core formation realm. This has made things much more difficult, but it changes nothing. John slowly stood up, and a scythe quickly appeared in his hands. Flash. Flash. 2 more flashes of light appeared at the second gate, revealing 2 more youths wearing blood-red robes. "Now the 2 kings have emerged. There's truly no hope for him," a youth commented. The 2 kings instantly noticed the unique atmosphere, and walked over to the three emperors. "What's going on?" one of the kings asked while staring at John. "This ant before us had been staring at us like this since we came out. I'm not sure why, but let's just kill him and move on," Azalea replied. She raised her hand, and power began to build up on it, growing to an incredible level. Bang! A powerful chi attack exploded from her hands, piercing directly towards John. A powerful pressure from the attack pressed down on John, attempting to lock him in place. John scoffed at the approaching attack as lightning began to dance on his legs. Boom! The chi attack exploded on the ground where John was standing, sending a massive explosion outwards. This simple attack from Azalea was as strong as the Corpse King's ultimate attack, showing her immense power. Smiles appeared on all their faces before they suddenly frowned and looked to the side. A flash of blue and red blurred past them, slicing directly into one of the Bloodfiend sect kings. Gah! The boy had managed to twist his body at the last moment, but the sweeping scythe had still managed to sever one of his arms. His pained cries rang out as John attempted a follow-up attack. Peng! A sword image instantly met his scythe attack, stopping it in its tracks. John was knocked back slightly as the Sword Emperor lowered his sword, having just saved his fellow disciple. Due to them underestimating John had been able to land a significant blow to one of the kings. He had been hopping to cut one down in a surprise attack, but even the kings were no pushovers. "Kill him!" the injured Bloodfiend sect king screamed out in rage. The five of them had not taken John seriously, but now none of them looked down on him. 5 powerful attacks instantly struck out towards John, seeking to destroy him in a single blow. Supreme Battle Art. John activated the Supreme Battle Art, strengthening his body to immense levels. His scythe struck out in a circular manner, utilizing the comprehensions and insights he had just learned from the ancient battlefield to its full extent. This was John's strongest defensive scythe stance. Boom! 5 attacks collided against John's sweeping scythe, overwhelming him in an incredible explosion. The crowd grimaced at the scene, assuming that John was surely dead from taking an attack like that head-on. John's body shot out of the explosion like a cannonball, sailing rapidly through the air. Bang! High's body collided against the far side of Adam's formation, coming to a complete stop and bouncing back against it quite brutally. He fell to the ground below, managing to land on his feet. "Oh, he's still alive," Azalea spoke up with a disbelieving tone. Although those weren't their strongest attacks, even one of them was enough to erase an early core formation cultivator, let alone 5 of them combined. John looked up and wiped the blood off his lips as he stared at the 5 with cold and rage-filled eyes. His body ached from taking that incredible combined attack head-on, but his combat prowess had not yet dropped. "I didn't want to use my strongest battle state right away as I have limited reserves, but it seems I have no other choice. Immortal Asura trans." John's Asura blood began to surge as he started his transformation, but it quickly stopped as he noticed something. His soul space began to tremble, and a smile appeared on John's face. Light flashed before John, quickly revealing a newcomer standing right before him. It was an odd-looking creature, about the size of a wolf, and appeared to look more like a horse. Its cultivation was at the mid-core formation realm. It seems as if that fruit he ate helped him out quite a bit as well. His power right now is quite incredible. John smiled as he stared at Kirai. Kirai was still using its disguise ability, making sure no one recognized it as a Kirin. "Are you sure you're strong enough for this battle?" John asked. Kirai had come out of his soul space on its own, and its growing battle intent showed its intentions clearly. Kirai nudged his head against John's body, and his soul connection with John confirmed his intentions. Lightning began to dance over Kirai's body as it too began to power up to its peak state. Although it didn't know much about what was going on, it could tell that John was in a dangerous situation, and so it had come out to help. Kirai was a heavenly beast, and so John was not too worried about it holding its own. John patted Kiriai's back as a confident smile appeared on his face. In that case, let's bathe this area in Bloodfiend sect blood, together. Chapter 237, Kiriai's power. Kiriai's cultivation was now at the mid-core formation realm. Based on its incredibly latent talent as a heavenly beast, John was not worried about Kiriai ensuring his safety. John pointed at the 5 distant Bloodfiend sect youths, his finger pointing to Azalea. If you can keep her occupied for the next while, that will be more than enough, John communicated through his soul connection with Kiriai. Kiriai's eyes immediately lit up in an excited manner, eager to experience its first battle, as well as help out John any way he could. John wanted Kiriai to stay away from the Sword Emperor, as his sharp attacks were quite terrifying, and only he was confident in blocking them with his body. As for Damon, he was John's prey from the start. John lowered his hand and began to walk over to the 5 distant youths, who were staring at him in amusement. Despite his toughness being shocking in that he survived their combined attacks, they were not worried about him turning the tides at all, even with the arrival of his companion. John's sneak attack had been mostly successful, but that was because the Bloodfiend King was not ready for it. If the Emperors truly wanted to interfere with that sneak attack, they could have. But the Bloodfiend sect was every man for themselves, and so they had no intention of helping those weaker than them in such a manner. John's aura once again began to climb as he started walking over to the 5 youths. His battle intent shot into the sky, revealing that he was not backing down in the slightest. There wasn't a trace of fear in his aura or intent, slightly surprising the other youths. Kiriai's battle aura also skyrocketed, mimicking John as it prepared for battle. Even with your pet at your side, your only choice is to die here, Azalea said to John in a mocking tone. John ignored the mocking comment and continued approaching. While his body chi reserves were quite limited, his essence reserves were filled to the brim. With core compressions, each compression improved the quality of the chi stored, as well as the quantity. Even when compared to a heavenly prodigy who achieved 10 compressions, John's essence chi reserves would be more than double, let alone whatever the Bloodfiend Emperors achieved. John was not worried about running out of essence chi before them. Heavenly Lightning Domain. Unworried about his essence reserves, John instantly activated his lightning domain. 36 lightning nodes suddenly sprung up in the surrounding area, spaced all around John and stretching up to 100 yards away. He had bought the core formation portion of the heavenly lightning domain and was now displaying its true power. Not only were there more nodes, but the lightning he could unleash from the nodes was much more powerful. When John was at the chi condensation realm, he could only unleash 1 lightning node attack at a time. Now his limit was 8. It should have been 2 when advancing to the core formation realm, but John's incredibly Danshan core allowed him to exceed the limits of the technique. The emperors and kings immediately noted the domain and frowned slightly. Its power was far beyond their expectations. Boom. 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 Several lightning node attacks pierced directly towards Azalea. She scoffed and turned to block the approaching attacks. A strange-looking weapon, like a mirror with a long handle, suddenly appeared in her hands. Bang! The lightning attacks struck onto the mirror, knocking her backwards dozens of yards. Her eyes opened in slight surprise at both the power and profundity of the lightning. Careful, his lighting is much more powerful than it looks. Don't let it strike you, Azalea spoke up. Her words of caution surprised the other youths, as they knew how powerful she was. She would only give such a warning if it was warranted. Azalea finally stopped her backwards momentum 200 yards away from the group. She remained uninjured and scoffed at John's attack. If that was all you have, you're as good as dead. John looked at Azalea and shook his head. Idiot. Roether. A loud, guttural roar echoed within the formation, drawing the attention of all those inside. The source of the roar sped towards Azalea like a blur, reaching her in an instant. Azalea barely managed to raise her mirror in time to block the attack. Boom. Kiriai's head struck Azalea's strange mirror, forcing it against her body. Azalea shot backwards like a cannonball, smashing into the formation wall behind her. Her body violently rebounded to the ground below as she struggled to land on her feet. She had not been prepared for such an intense attack. Lightning began to build up on Kiriai's body, gathering on its forehead, where its now disguised lightning crystal existed. Bang! Lightning immediately exploded out of Kiriai's forehead, piercing directly towards the still recovering Azalea. Its power was incredible, and was even more powerful than John's full-powered lightning ruin. Azalea's blood and chi were still in turmoil within her body from the previous attack, and she was not able to muster a normal defense in time to block this attack. Azalea grit her teeth as she raised her mirror before her. Her mirror suddenly began to glow, and a strange aura wrapped around it. The lightning beams struck onto the mirror. Everyone was expecting a powerful explosion to radiate outwards, but there was only silence as the attack disappeared. Boom! A loud boom suddenly echoed out as the lightning beam appeared once more, piercing directly towards Kiriai. Azalea's face paled considerably as she redirected the attack. Kiriai noticed the approaching lightning beam, but did not understand how it had been deflected. However, Kiriai did not dodge the attack at all. Boom! The attack landed directly onto Kiriai's body, causing a powerful explosion to radiate outwards. Kiriai was engulfed in an explosion of extreme lightning, causing its body to be lost within. Ha ha ha, that pet of yours is an idiot, Azalea laughed out loud after turning the tides. The technique she used was one of her ultimate defense techniques, and it took out quite a bit of chi from her. She could also only use it twice before the burden on her body became too great and she had to rest. However, the cost had been worth it to eliminate the meddling pet. John ignored Azalea as he continued to approach the others, as he muttered under his breath once more. Complete idiot. How is lightning going to injure Kiriai? Another powerful lightning beam suddenly pierced out of the fatting explosion, once again piercing directly towards Azalea. Her eyes widened in surprise as she suddenly utilized a movement technique, narrowly dodging the attack. The fatting lightning explosion revealed Kiri, standing there in perfect health. Its eyes burned in anger, not having been attacked, but having missed Azalea with its attacks. It was like a child throwing a temper tantrum at not achieving its goal. Kiriai suddenly sped towards Azalea, appearing like a blur of lightning as it reached her in an instant. Boom! 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 A series of loud explosions began to ring out as Kiri and Azalea began to exchange moves, neither seemingly getting the upper hand. However, the other Bloodfiend youths could tell that due to Azalea using that technique of hers already, she was starting to lose out due to lessened combat prowess. Damon frowned at the scene and suddenly gestured to one of the Bloodfiend kings. Kaiden, go help Azalea. The three of us here will be more than enough to handle this lowly heavenly lightning peasant. Damon had no idea how John had such a powerful pet, but that didn't matter right now. They could study Kiriai after John was dead. Kaiden nodded his head and sped over to Azalea, joining in her fight. Booms continued to echo out on the other side of the formation, as Kiriai fought against Azalea and Kaiden. John continued to walk over to Damon, and his slow but steady steps as he approached the youths seemed to be like the war drums of a battle god, signifying the start of an incredible fight to come. His battle intent rose with every step, and by the time he stood before them, John's battle intent was unlike anything the crowd had seen before. John finally approached the three youths and stood only a dozen yards away from them. His cold, smoldering eyes stared directly at Damon, seemingly ignoring the two other youths. With your death, I'll finally pay tribute to my fallen brother, John said in a cold but steady tone. Understanding finally appeared on Damon's face as he began to laugh loudly. So that's why you've decided to throw your life away, for your stupid friend I cut down earlier. Haha, you heavenly lightning peasants truly are idiots, Damon replied. Don't worry, you'll be joining him soon. Boom. Lightning rained down from every direction from John's lightning domain, all piercing directly towards Damon. At the same time, John's body shot forward like a blur, as his scythe struck down directly towards Damon's head. The time to avenge Russell had finally arrived. Chapter 238, each side revealing their power. Damon's eyes stared at the approaching scythe without any fear at all. He didn't even make a move to block it, as a small but smug smile hung on his face. Peng! An incredibly fast sword image sailed forward and collided with John's scythe, stopping it in its tracks. John quickly looked to the side and saw Qilin, the Sword Emperor, look at him in disdain, as if he was unworthy of receiving such an attack. He suddenly dashed forward and appeared next to John in an instant, his sword piercing towards his chest like a blur. Peng! John raised the handle of his scythe just in time, blocking the attack. The force of the attack sent him a dozen yards backwards. Not only was Damon extremely dangerous, but when it came to sheer killing moves, the Sword Emperor was even more so. Crimson Blood Sword. Damon suddenly slashed out with his own sword, using the Crimson Blood Sword that had been demonstrated by Dylan back in the tournament. However, this sword technique was miles ahead of what Dylan could accomplish, and appeared almost like a different attack. A blood-red sword image slashed towards John, attempting to overwhelm him with its sheer force and power. While Qilin had extremely sharp attacks, Damon's attacks were powerful and oppressive. John could even feel his blood slightly affected by Damon's attack, but his powerful blood and body was able to instantly suppress it. Bang! Bang! John slashed his scythe out twice in quick succession against the two attacks, blocking them fully. His body was sent flying backwards once more, losing out slightly in the exchange. They were just about to press their attacks when the lightning nodes suddenly lit up, sending multiple beams of powerful lightning to each opponent. All three opponents turned to block the attacks at the same time. Boom! 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 The ground continuously shook as lightning continued to rain down on the youths, causing them to focus their attention on it. It was like they were in a perpetual lightning storm, being struck at from all directions. The heavenly lightning domain, when utilized to its full extent, was extremely powerful, but also extremely taxing on chi reserves. Thankfully, John did not have to worry about that last part too much due to his formidable essence stanchion. Lightning continued to rain down ceaselessly, causing his opponents to get more frustrated by the moment. After stabilizing his backwards momentum, John slashed his scythe forward with one hand, sending a powerful scythe image towards Qilin. At the same time, his other hand raised, pointing his finger towards the remaining Bloodfiend King. Lightning Ruin. A powerful lightning beam shot out of John's finger, piercing directly towards the king who was still busy fighting against John's lightning domain. He noticed the attack at the last moment, but would be a hair late to stop it. Bang! Bang! Both the scythe image and the lightning attack collided with suddenly appearing swords, causing the attacks to fall just off their targets. HMPH. Qilin scoffed at the two attacks. A dozen swords now floated in the air around him, each brimming with the power of an early grade core formation weapon. Clearly, it was some sort of sword domain. Not only that, but he suddenly held a different sword in his hand than before. It was brimming with an ancient aura, clearly something the Sword Emperor had obtained in this ancient city, or perhaps even in the Arch Trials. Lightning continued to rain down on the youths, but the swords revolving around Qilin suddenly shot out in every direction. They moved incredibly quickly and formed a revolving defense around the three youths, completely fighting back against the lightning domain. Not only that, but the swords sliced into the domain nodes as well, severing them apart. The nodes would quickly reform, but nodes' destruction, although momentarily, gave the youths more reprieve than before. Boom! 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 Lighting and swords continually collided, exploding against each other and bathing the area with powerful shockwaves. At the same time, the battle between Kiri, Azalea, and Kaiden continued to rage on the other side of the formation area, violently shaking the ground from their exchanges. Kyrie darted around like a blur, looking like a beam of lightning itself, his speed unmatched. Azalea and Kaiden attempted to pin Kyrie down, but were unable to do so. Azalea suddenly activated a defensive domain, which slightly slowed down Kyrie's speed. The two sides continued to trade blows, with neither side coming out on top. John narrowed his eyes as he stared forward at Killeen and Damon. Not only did Killeen reveal shocking power and a shocking weapon, but an incredibly ancient and powerful weapon now rested in Damon's hand as well. It was a blood-red sword, and its grade was at the peak of the core formation realm. John could tell it was an amazing weapon. The two emperors' auras exploded out with incredible power, shocking all those watching. "What monsters?" a youth in the crowd muttered. The nearby youths all nodded their heads in agreement. The two emperors were showing why they were so feared. "Your strength isn't bad, but now you die," Damon scoffed as the surroundings suddenly went red. Crimson Hell Domain. John instantly recognized the domain, as it was displayed by both Jason and Dylan previously. However, this domain of Damon's was much more profound, being on a completely different level compared to the amateur displays of the other two. John felt the same invading force on his body and soul, seeking to control his blood in his body, as well as overwhelm his soul and will. John steeled his will, resisting the soul portion of the attack, while powering his body even further to resist the blood portion. "Even with my incredibly powerful Asura body, I can still feel effects on my blood and body from Damon's domain. I think it's about time to use it." John was shocked at this discovery, which showed just how powerful Damon was. His body was actually being affected greatly by the domain, which was outside of his expectations. Unfortunately, his body, which was at the late chi condensation realm, was just too low at the moment to resist such a domain. John narrowed his eyes as he stared at the three youths. His eyes slowly began to turn red. Immortal Asura transformation art. The area went silent for a brief moment, before John's aura suddenly shot up into the sky, much more powerful than before. The aura continued to become more sinister and bloodthirsty, completely shocking the crowd. Its power was unlike anything they had ever felt before. It was like they were witnessing the birth of a demon god. The two emperors and one king narrowed their eyes as they stared at John with serious expressions. They noticed John's eyes go completely blood red, clearly indicating that it was some sort of transformation art. His aura was also completely unlike before, giving even them a moment of pause. Even Azalea and Kaiden paused for a moment to look over towards John, completely shocked by his sudden explosion of power. John felt the negative effects of Damon's domain completely wash away, once again freeing him from Damon's control. Damon quickly composed himself and suddenly shot forward like a bullet, appearing directly before John, his sword slashing down powerfully. John quickly raised his scythe. Peng! Sword and scythe collided, and John was the one to lose out in the exchange as he was sent several steps backwards. Damon raised his eyebrows in surprise, as he expected John to be unable to move at all due to his formation. "Your power and body truly is shocking. Once I kill you, I'll use your blood to improve my battle arts," Damon said in a mocking tone as he suddenly slashed at John again. The Blood Fiend King, who wielded a sword as well, joined Damon in his assault on John. Peng! 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 Swords continuously pierced and slashed towards John in an endless barrage, seeking to take his life. John's scythe revolved and twirled endlessly, fully utilizing the scythe insights he had recently gained. His twirling scythe was like a defensive wall, blocking whatever attack came his way. However, he was slowly but surely being pushed backwards. Even with his incredible transformation, John was still on the losing end. His body cultivation was unfortunately only at the late chi condensation realm, an entire major realm below Damon's cultivation. Despite the incredible power-up, he was still on the defensive. Bang! Bang! At the same time, Lightning from John's lightning domain continued to rain down on the three youths, like an endless lightning storm. However, swords quickly flew about, completely blocking each and every lightning domain attack. The swords would also occasionally join in the assault on John, making things even harder on him. The crowd watched in stunned silence at the battle before them. Despite John being on the losing side of things, he was still holding his own against two blood-fiend emperors and one blood-fiend king. While the emperors and kings were not going all out yet, it was an incredibly shocking scene, as none of those present would be able to remotely do such a thing at John's cultivation. Is he a reincarnated battle god? One divine soul sect youth asked in a stunned tone. That, or a demon god, another replied, unwilling to take their eyes away from the fight. While the divine soul sect was stunned, the supreme battle sect youths felt their blood boil at the sight. While they didn't know how John knew the supreme battle art, watching him use it and fight 3 against 1 sparked their battle intent. The heavenly lightning sect youths watched on with mixed reactions of pride and worry. However, they were not powerful enough to help John, and so they could only watch. John's scythe continued to twirl about, blocking the attacks that came from Damon and the other boy. He would occasionally send a counter-attack out, nearly taking the king's life several times. However, all of his blows had been blocked or dodged at the last moment. John's eyes suddenly focused on his scythe. His scythe was now completely riddled with cracks and scars, having blocked the higher-grade weapons for quite some time. It was only a chi condensation grade weapon, and could not keep up with the barrage from the ancient core formation grade weapons. Peng. Peng. Shatter. After blocking several more attacks, a powerful sword attack from Damon collided against John's scythe, shattering it completely. It fragmented into bits, the bits slamming against his body, while Damon's crimson blood sword also landed on John's chest. John suddenly shot backwards like a bullet, a trail of blood following behind him. The crowd grimaced as John slammed against the formation wall on the far side, coming to a complete stop and rebounding to the floor below. He lay face down after landing, appearing as if he was dead, or at least greatly injured. Blood pooled below his body, revealing the state of his injury. HMPH, Damon scoffed as a large smile appeared on his face. He and the Bloodfiend King slowly began to walk over to John's body. Outside the formation, a concerned look appeared on the girl watching from the sides. Her hand suddenly raised once more, beginning to glow with incredible power. "Forgive me, Russell," a soft voice suddenly spoke out. It was incredibly soft, but for some reason everyone could hear it. Damon scoffed once more as he approached John. His sword slowly raised above his head, ready to slash down at a moment's notice. "Apologize when you meet him in the underworld." Boom. His voice suddenly cut off as John's aura instantly exploded outward once more, even greater than before. The clouds above the temple began to churn and quickly gathered into a violent tempest. Lightning continuously snaked through the sky within the clouds, sending deafening booms echoing through the air. A terrifying pressure suddenly pressed down on all the youths, with John at the center of its focus. The pressure was completely overwhelming, causing even the 3 emperors to stop in their tracks and stare upwards, their faces showing signs of fear. While they could not see the storm above the temple, they could clearly feel and hear it. Tribulation Clouds, Chapter 239, Tribulation Clouds. The tribulation clouds churned violently overhead, as if it was an apocalyptic storm ready to destroy all below it. The lightning within the clouds violently churned, as if it was searching for its target. However, they never struck down, seemingly unable to find the intended victim. "This pressure, these sounds, there are tribulation clouds above us," one divine soul sect youth exclaimed in complete surprise. "I've witnessed my master ascend to the heaven tribulation realm, and this pressure is definitely the same," a supreme battle sect youth agreed. "But tribulation clouds only appear when ascending to the heaven tribulation realm. Just what is going on?" another divine soul sect youth replied. Their eyes looked towards the still face down John, unsure exactly what was going on. However, everyone could tell that John was the center of the tribulation's pressure, and that it was pressing down on him the most. None could make sense of it. The pressure pressing down on the entire area was so great that none dared to move, even the three emperors. Despite the fact that John was face down and defenseless, they didn't dare to move or attack him. In his fight just now, John had been incredibly impressive, fighting 3 against 1, jumping multiple realms in the process. Such a thing was completely unheard of. However, it still hadn't been enough. He had prepared to fight the emperors based on their middle core formation cultivation, but unluckily, all of them had advanced to the late core formation realm within the arch trials. This put their strength at a completely new level, one that John was not able to match. His essence attacks, while completely powerful, were neutralized by the Sword Emperor, while the Blood Emperor and the other king forced him back with their constant barrage of attacks. John had taken a great loss because of his scythe breaking, but even then he could tell that the Blood Emperor and Sword Emperor were not going all out. They were playing with John, and did not consider him to be worthy of using their full strength. Unfortunately, John's body was still too weak. His body Danshan had been relatively close to breaking through, but he had not had the opportunity to obtain more blood essence to do so. With his current predicament, he was forced to do something he had hoped to avoid. John continued to lay there on the ground as he guided the remaining blood into his Danshan. Human blood essence existed in the forehead, and John had one last source of blood essence at his disposal. Russell's potent blood essence, due to his common grade innate variant body, surged into John's body Danshan with vibrant potency. John guided the blood according to the Immortal Asura tome, quickly raising his power to higher and higher levels. There was a brief resistance at the very peak, as if the heavens were resisting the breakthrough before. Boom. A muffled sound echoed in John's body, his body cultivation successfully breaking through to the early core formation realm. As soon as he did this, his aura exploded wildly, and tribulation clouds instantly appeared. Before he could react, John once again found himself standing within the palace in his palace realm, directly below the revolving drops of blood. His expression changed quickly, as he was completely vulnerable. His consciousness immediately left the palace realm and explored the real world, seeing what was going on. A sigh of relief escaped his lips as he noticed no one moving, too afraid to draw the wrath of the heavens. His attention once again went to the blood drops above him, which revolved in an endless dance. The familiar pressure once again wrapped around him, locking him in place, as one of the blood drops slowly left the translucent barrier and descended down towards him. The blood drop was much more powerful than the previous one he had absorbed, and contained both the holy and sinister aura. The holy aura was even more holy than before, while the sinister blood was more dark and evil. John could tell that based on the power emanating from this blood drop, this ascension to core formation was going to be a great leap forward in power. John remained calm as the blood descended to his chest, and watched the drop slowly enter it. Boom! The sinister blood immediately rebelled within John's body, seeking to destroy it from within. It rampaged violently, as if he was unworthy of subduing it. The holy aura immediately flared up, washing over the sinister blood and fighting against it. The two sides began to clash against each other, their power neutralizing the other side. With both sides neutralized in power, John guided the sinister blood drop to his body Danshan, allowing his Danshan to absorb it and grow. His Danshan absorbed the sinister blood quickly, as if the blood naturally belonged to it, greatly increasing his Danshan in both power and profundity. The process lasted for nearly a minute before all the blood was absorbed. Since the mysterious sphere, which was acting as his Danshan, was already solid, John did not have to undergo Danshan compressions. However, the power now emanating from his body Danshan did not lose out to his essence Danshan at all in power or profundity, revealing it to be of nearly equal quality. As the sinister blood was completely absorbed, the holy blood stopped flaring its power and began to diffuse within John's body. He could feel his body advance, not in strength, but in talent, as the holy blood purified it. The entire process only took several minutes, much quicker than his essence-danshan advancement. John's consciousness instantly returned to the real world, his body still face down on the ground. Blood pooled below him, but John could feel that the wound on his chest had been completely healed during his ascension. John slowly stood up and inspected his body, which was now brimming with absolute power. The nearby youths all looked at John as if he were a monster, completely unable to comprehend what was happening. It seemed in this entire area, only John was able to move against the heavenly pressure descending down from above. John finally noticed the tribulation pressure pressing down on him from above. With him at the center of its focus, the pressure was greatest on him. However, he found himself able to mostly ignore it. Not only that, but his body felt a growing disgust against the pressure, as if he was sworn enemies against it. His blood-red eyes stared straight up, as if he could see the clouds through the temple roof above. The clouds continued to churn for a short while, before they gradually began to disperse, unable to locate John anymore. His ascension was already complete. The pressure gradually vanished, but no one moved even after it completely left. John's blood-red eyes looked down from the ceiling above and immediately locked onto Damon, who was standing several dozen yards away. Damon's expression was a mix of confusion and fear, but he quickly composed himself as he noticed John's gaze. His divine sense washed over John, and a mocking expression quickly replaced his previous fear. "I don't know what the hell just happened, but that was quite a show you just put on. Despite all that, your strength is still at the early core formation realm. Was that some sort of illusion formation you just unleashed to buy yourself a bit of time to recover?" Damon asked in a condescending tone. Due to John's body danshan being undetectable by anyone, everyone assumed that John's cultivation realm had stayed the exact same. While his aura felt quite different, they did not see a big enough change in his body to turn the tides of the battle. The tribulation clouds had been completely shocking, but the crowd came to two conclusions regarding them. Either they were an illusion, or even if they weren't, they were not related to John ascending realms, as his cultivation had stayed the same. John stared at Damon, but didn't respond. It was as if his focus was elsewhere. John remained that way for a short time before he snapped back to reality. His cold eyes looked down on Damon with disdain, as if he was not worthy of standing before him. Damon's smug look was replaced with one of displeasure at how John was looking at him. The Sword Emperor and the other king, who stood beside Damon, all felt the same way. Boom! John's aura, which was already powerful, exploded outwards in an even more terrifying fashion. The sinister nature of his aura increased greatly, chilling all those feeling it to their core. Faint, blood-red runes suddenly began to appear on John's body, almost faint enough to not notice. Two small protrusions, pitch black in color, suddenly appeared on the top of his head, as if they were two small horns. His nails suddenly grew slightly, becoming as hard and sharp as weapons themselves. His muscles bulged slightly, as if they were forged of steel and brimmed with incredible power. Both Damon and the Sword Emperor unconsciously took a step backwards as they looked at John, as if such a fear came instinctually from their core. John felt an overwhelming power rush through his body, nearly destroying it from within. However, his incredibly sturdy body resisted the rampaging energy and quickly controlled it to his will. His cold, ruthless eyes stared straight at Damon as his fiendish aura washed over all. Immortal Asura Transformation Art. Second Form, Chapter 240. Battle God John's blood-red eyes became even colder with his new transformation, chilling all those who looked at them. His aura exploded off his body with great power, shocking all with how sinister it felt. It was as if they were staring at a true demon god. Damon's expression changed slightly as he noticed John's newfound power. It was much greater than what he was able to display before. However, he was still confident in his own power and his ability to handle John. Damon had been bathed in blood and battle all his life, and so just an aura was not able to scare him off. John once again activated his heavenly lightning domain, causing lightning to rain down ceaselessly on the three youths before him. The power of each strike was shocking, and the Sword Emperor once again activated his sword domain to fight back against it. The power of his sword domain was even stronger than before, revealing that he had not gone all out before. John increased his domain output to his maximum, leaving nothing behind anymore. Swords and lightning continuously collided, bathing the battlefield with deafening booms. At the same time, the Sword Emperor held his sword and faced John alongside Damon and the other king. With his expanded sword domain, he was able to fully focus on John in direct combat. A sharp sword intent emanated from his body, causing John to narrow his eyes slightly. In regards to lethality of attacks, the Sword Emperor was the one he had to worry about. Damon suddenly smirked as he made a strange hand seal. A ball of blood floated between his hands, and a brief inspection from John revealed the blood to be his own. The blood had been collected when his sword attack landed on John's chest. "This is the blood I collected from you earlier. I used this technique on that friend of yours, and I'll use it now again. Become a slave to my Crimson Hell domain, ha 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 ha," Damon said to John, his laughter echoing out afterwards. Damon completed his hand seals, and John could feel a sudden force invade his body. The force seemed to want to take control of his blood in an even greater fashion than the initial Crimson Hell domain. The energy continued to invade John's body, seeking to completely enslave him to Damon's control. John felt that strange connection between his blood and his body, and the blood hovering in Damon's hands. However, his expression remained calm, but his rage burned even greater. This must be the move Damon used on Russell to control him, based on the descriptions of the battle I received. However, John scoffed at such a feeble attempt at controlling him. "My body is not something someone like you can control," John replied in a cold tone. "Haha, wussy about thaw." Boom. John pressed off the ground, lightning snaking all over his legs. He appeared next to Damon in an instant, and his fist punched outwards with all his might. Damon's expression instantly changed, and he raised his blood-red sword to block the attack. However, his arrogant assumption of controlling John had lowered his guard, making him late to do so. This was the first time his technique had failed. Peng! John's fist collided with a sharp sword light just as he was about to reach Damon's chest. A metallic sound rang out, and John was knocked a dozen yards backwards. Blood slightly tricked down his fist. While Damon was unprepared, Kyulin, the Sword Emperor, was not. He had the fastest attacks of any of the three emperors and had just saved Damon. John instantly pressed off the ground once more, his speed incredibly fast as he combined his thunderflash steps with the power of his body. John's three opponents realized he was no longer the same person and started to fight with all their strength. Boom. 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 Explosions continuously shook the ground, as lightning, metal, and fists continuously collided in an endless barrage of attacks. Due to losing his scythe, John was fighting barehanded right now, sending powerful kicks and punches towards his opponents. Every move of his caused the ground to shake and the air to ripple, revealing the incredible power of his body. The crowd watched in stunned silence once again. John was fighting evenly against the two emperors and one king. How is this possible? Is he truly a reincarnated battle god? He must be, otherwise how else can you explain his strength? The youths spoke out in stunned voices as they watched John fight with incredible prowess. The Heavenly Lightning Sect youths gripped their fists tightly, expressions of pride and excitement on their faces. Standing a distance away from the crowd, a lone girl stared at the fight, her expression stunned as well. While the overall power John was displaying was not above what she was used to, his battle prowess was completely unlike anything she had ever seen before. Not only that, but his aura and will was incredible, as if he would fight against the heavens themselves without pause. Maybe, with his help, her soft voice murmured out. Boom. 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 Attacks continued to fly out, shaking the battlefield with non-stop explosions. John suddenly pointed his finger outwards, sending an immediate lightning ruin towards Damon. Damon slashed out his sword, sending a powerful crimson blood sword attack to meet it. Boom. The attacks collided, sending an explosion of chi radiating outwards. Chi. An incredibly sharp and fast sword light pierced towards John's back as the Sword Emperor got behind him, seeking to land a fatal blow. Lightning domain. John's divine sense was constantly expanded in this fight, giving him vision in every direction. While such a thing was incredibly taxing on the soul, John's soul was strong enough to withstand the burden. A lightning domain attack instantly flared out, colliding with the sword light. Chi. 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 A continuous barrage of sword lights from both Killeen and Damon filled the battlefield, while the Bloodfiend King sent out his own attacks as well. Lightning continuously rained down from the sky, landing on the sword attacks piercing towards him, bathing the battlefield in explosions. However, Killeen's sword domain swords continuously flew about the battlefield as well, neutralizing most of the lightning domain attacks. John's finger continuously pointed in many directions, sending off blast after blast of lightning ruins to meet the attacks his lightning domain was not able to neutralize. He was like a one-man army, fighting against insurmountable odds, but someone managing to do so. His aura remained unchanged, appearing as if he were a demon god fighting against the world. The battlefield continued to shake violently from the continued explosions, as John continued to fight back 3 against 1. His powerful body collided against weapons and chi attacks over and over, somehow withstanding the power of those attacks. However, despite his powerful body, his strength was diminished due to having no weapon. Not only was his reach lessened, but the Sword Emperor's sword attacks were so sharp that they cut into his own body. While the wounds were not deep, John quickly came to the conclusion that he could only block so many of those attacks before they added up to something detrimental. John's body suddenly blurred, and he instantly appeared next to Damon once more. His fist punched out powerfully, aiming for Damon's head. Blood freely flowed off his fists from the damage they had taken, but John ignored the pain as he continued to fight with all his power. Peng! Sword and fist collided, and Damon was sent flying backwards like a cannonball. While flying backwards, Damon slashed his sword out several times, sending sharp crimson blood swords directly towards John. Chi. Chi. More sword lights from the Sword Emperor pierced towards John's back, and he was forced to go on the defensive instead of follow up on his attack on Damon. John sped in every direction, narrowly dodging the sword attacks, while a frown appeared on his face. I need more firepower. Even when I land attacks, if they focus on defense, they get out relatively unscathed. John's blood essence reserves continued to dwindle as he used the Immortal Asura transformation art. Before long, he would run out, and as a result, run out of body chi. He wanted to avoid using attacks that burned through his blood essence reserves faster, but realized that he needed to make a gamble. His essence chi reserves would outlast his opponents, but not his body chi reserves. Once that happened, he was as good as dead. I guess I can't hold back anymore. Let's finish this. All of his opponents were incredibly powerful, and only overwhelmingly powerful attacks would be able to break their defenses and land fatal blows. Chi. Another incredible sharp sword image pierced towards John's back, looking to land a critical blow. John's body blurred, and he narrowly dodged the attack. He appeared in front of the Sword Emperor in a flash, his cold eyes staring at him as if he were prey. Lightning domain attacks pierced towards his 2 other opponents, seeking to keep them away for a moment. The Sword Emperor scoffed, not caring about John's attacks. John's fists, while strong, were unable to break his defenses. John raised his hand above his head, slightly surprising the Sword Emperor with this strange action. An ancient sword suddenly appeared in his hands, brimming with incredible power and lethality. John grit his teeth as his arm muscles bulged out with great power, controlling the sword to the best of his abilities. He suddenly swung down towards the Sword Emperor with all his might. Die! Chapter 241. Overwhelming power. The Sword Emperor's eyes instantly locked onto the sword in John's hand, his expression turning grave. With his newfound ascension, John was just strong enough to wield this meridian-forging-grade ancient weapon. His body was even more powerful than he expected after advancing to the core formation realm, and he could wield the sword now, although with great effort and chi expenditure. The sword slashed right towards the Sword Emperor's head, seeking to take his life in one blow. The Sword Emperor realized the overwhelming might of the attack and didn't hold anything back for defense. 8 more swords suddenly appeared in the air around him, signifying that he had not used his full sword domain power before. The swords were all incredibly fast and pierced directly towards John's sword, looking to block the blow. At the same time, the Sword Emperor slashed out with his ancient core formation grade sword, adding to the blocking power. Peng! 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 The flying swords collided with John's sword one after another, seeking to slow the attack. However, John's sword was far too powerful to be slowed, as it slashed through each of the 8 flying swords. The flying swords shattered upon contact with John's sword, revealing its overwhelming might. Boom! John's sword finally collided against the Sword Emperor's ancient sword. Gah! The Sword Emperor, despite his best efforts, was sent flying backwards like a broken kite. Blood escaped his mouth from the force of the impact. Bang! His body collided against the formation wall, causing it to rebound off it. The formation wall dimmed slightly, revealing it was starting to run out of power. John dashed forward with his greatest speed, looking to follow up his attack. His speed was slowed, due to holding the incredibly heavy sword, but he still moved quite fast. Damon and the other king suddenly appeared before the Sword Emperor. Based on the outcome of the previous attack, they all realized that John's current attack power was something only the 3 of them could block together. Block his attacks together. That sword seems to weigh an incredible amount. He'll run out of energy before us, Damon instructed. The Sword Emperor slowly stood up from the ground, holding his ribs in pain from the previous exchange. John finally reached the 3 of them, and slashed his sword out sideways directly toward the weakest of the 3, the Bloodfiend Sect King. Crimson Blood Sword. Bloodfiend Sword Domain. Parting Blood Slash. The 3 Bloodfiend Sect youths all used their most powerful attacks, which they sent outwards to meet John's attack. Boom! The attacks collided violently, sending an incredibly powerful explosion outwards. The 3 youths were all knocked backwards from the force of the attack, unable to withstand both its power. John's body suddenly appeared through the radiating explosion, blood slightly trailing down parts of his body. However, he ignored the wounds as he bounded forward, appearing in front of the other youths once again. Chi! His sword slashed out downwards towards Damon, who was still getting up. Bloodfiend Steps. Damon instantly activated his fastest movement technique, narrowly dodging John's attack. Bang! John's sword collided with the incredibly sturdy floor below, sending out an incredibly loud echo. The ground shook from the force of the attack, revealing to all in the crowd just how heavy and powerful that attack was. John picked up the sword to his side once more, his cold and ruthless eyes once again locking on Damon. His breathing was heavy, as wielding the sword was hard even for him. Each swing of the sword consumed a great amount of strength and energy, sapping his chi reserves incredibly quickly and putting an immense strain on his body. At the same time, his 3 opponents were also breathing incredibly heavy, their faces becoming more and more pale. The fight was clearly exhausting them, and they too seemed to be running low on chi reserves. Bang! Bang! Lightning domain attacks rained down on the 3 youths, giving them no reprieve to catch their breath. Each slashed out with their swords, blocking the domain attacks. John appeared in front of them like a ghost once more, his sword slashing out with incredible power. Bang! 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 Continuous blows were exchanged, with John slashing his sword out with incredible power, and the three blood-fiend youths using their full power for defense. The battlefield continuously shook as the four continued to exchange series after series of attacks. Each time John's sword was blocked, one of the youths would fly backwards violently, unable to withstand his powerful assault. John's aura continued to climb even higher, his bloodlust and battle will pressing down on the youths like a guillotine on their necks. Even with their cruel and blood-filled history, they had never felt a bloodlust like John's right now. John's barrage continued to overwhelm the three blood-fiend youths, although their attacks used for pure defense allowed them to slow his assault. Despite John being the one pressing the assault, his face was becoming more and more grave. At this rate, I'll run out of blood essence reserves in the next minute or two. I need to make an all-out gamble. John could no longer waste any time. His assault had whittled the three youths down to their last legs as well, and each of them were extremely injured from John's non-stop assault. I'll do what I do best, exchange attacks using my body to land a fatal blow. John had done it several times in the past, allowing his opponent to land a blow on his body, unblocked in order to land a crippling blow himself. With the fight proceeding as it was, John realized this was his only hope to end the battle. John's aura continued to climb, and his incredibly strong battle intent seemed to solidify, as if he was ready to throw his life away. John rested his sword on his shoulder as he stared at the three youths. He lowered his stance, ready to push off the ground with his full power to unleash his ultimate attack. Flash! A flash of light appeared behind John, surprising him, his opponents, and the entire crowd. John quickly turned around to the source of the flash of light, the fourth arch. It's the Soul Sage. The Soul Sage actually survived the fourth arch. A divine soul sect youth exclaimed with happiness and pride. Against all odds, the Soul Sage had actually managed to survive the sure death trial. The Soul Sage stood in front of the arch, his gaze looking every which way. His vision landed on John, noticing his incredibly ruthless and rage-filled eyes. However, the rage and ruthlessness instantly evaporated as a slightly confused look appeared in John's eyes. Miko, Chapter 242, Soul Sage Miko stood there before the arch, his gaze still trying to make sense of what was going on before him. He had just left the trial and had expected the crowd to be just outside the arches, but all he saw was an incredible battlefield and someone he had not expected at all. "John, you're alive," Miko asked in a confused manner. According to his knowledge, John was dead. The Fenix clan had not let the news out that John was alive, and so Miko still thought he was dead. An incredibly powerful divine sense suddenly washed over John as Miko inspected him, making sure his eyes weren't somehow playing tricks on him. After a brief moment of hesitation, pure elation appeared on Miko's face as he rushed forward. "You're alive, ha 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 ha." Miko instantly embraced John, confirming once and for all that he was not an illusion. John, after a brief moment of being stunned as well, embraced Miko as well. It had felt like forever since he last saw his lifelong friend. The faces of the Bloodfiend sect youths turned grave as they watched John and Miko embrace. They had run into the Soul Sage earlier in these lands and knew his power was not something they could look down on. If the Soul Sage and John teamed up together, they would be unable to withstand the onslaught. Miko's cultivation was only in the middle core formation realm, but even then, he was able to match up evenly against the Emperor's, showing his incredible battle prowess. Miko and John parted, and Miko looked around in a confused manner at the battlefield before them. "What's going on? Are you fighting the Emperors?" "Soul Sage," Damon suddenly spoke up, drawing the attention of John and Miko. "I don't know what relationship you have with this heavenly lightning peasant, but it's in your best interest if you do not interfere." Miko's elated face instantly turned sour. "What the fuck did you say to me?" His burst of anger surprised all those present, even his own divine soul sect. They knew him as an ethereal prodigy who stood above all, but they had never seen this side of him before. Motherfucker, even without you having enmity with John, just speaking to me like that is deserving of death. But since you and John are enemies, you must die. His coarse language stunned all who heard it. John's rage and bloodlust was slightly lessened by Miko's usual antics, and he fought off the urge to laugh in order to keep his optimal battle state. You handle the Sword Emperor. The Blood Emperor is mine, John said to Miko, who nodded his head in understanding. Clearly, there was extreme enmity between John and the Blood Emperor for him to say something like this. Miko looked at the Sword Emperor with a look of pity. His figure suddenly blurred, as he nearly instantly appeared before the Sword Emperor. A marble white sword, radiating an ancient aura as well, appeared in his hands and slashed down towards the Sword Emperor. The Sword Emperor's face turned extremely grave as he slashed out his own sword, parrying the attack. Peng! 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 Miko and the Sword Emperor instantly exchanged dozens of attacks. Although even at first, it quickly became apparent that Miko was winning. His incredibly powerful soul infused with every attack, nearly driving the Sword Emperor mad. At the same time, Kyrie was still fighting against Azalea and Cadian on the other side of the formation, the battle still in a complete stalemate. John's cold gaze returned to Damon, who now had a look of panic on his face. Without the Sword Emperor to help him, he was not confident in being able to withstand John's blows. However, he could tell that John was nearly at the end of his ropes and would run out of energy soon. If that happened, he could instantly turn the tides. John wasted no words and dashed towards Damon. His body appeared like a blur as he arrived before him in an instant, his sword slashing down onto Damon. Damon's Crimson Hell domain was still active, but completely ineffective against John's strong body and soul. Crimson Blood Sword. Damon slashed out his most powerful attack, meeting John's sword head-on. He dashed backwards in an attempt to soften the blow, as he was looking to waste time instead of fight head-on. John smirked at this action, his eyes looking at Damon as if he were an idiot. Idiot, without the Sword Emperor around, who will block my lightning domain. Damon immediately understood the reason for John's smirk. He had become so used to the Sword Emperor neutralizing John's lightning domain that he had forgotten about it. Now that the Sword Emperor was gone, he no longer had that luxury. Turner, block the lightning domain attacks, Damon barked out to the king, who was still joining him in battle. Turner grimaced, as his power was only in the middle core formation realm. He was unable to block the assault of John's lightning single-handedly. However, he had no choice. It was do or die. Turner slashed out his sword successively towards each lightning domain attack, neutralizing several of them. However, there were too many, and he did not have a perfect defensive domain like the Sword Emperor. Gah! A lightning domain attack landed on Turner, charring his flesh and sending him flying backwards violently. Lightning Ruin. John pointed towards Turner, sending out a powerful lightning blast. Boom! The lightning blast struck onto Turner, who was still struggling against John's destructive lightning from the previous attack. The lightning struck his chest, piercing directly into his heart. A look of extreme agony and regret washed over Turner's face as the life instantly left his body. Chi. John slashed his sword down once more at Damon, using only the weight of the sword, with no battle arts. However, the weight of the sword alone allowed these attacks to be more powerful than any battle art Damon could muster. Panic appeared on Damon's face as he slashed out at John's sword. Gah! Damon was knocked backwards by the force. His arms felt like they had shattered from the impact, but he knew he had no time for pain. Chi. 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 Damon slashed out continuously around him, each slash sending a powerful sword image towards a lightning domain attack. Sword images and lightning attacks continuously collided, bathing the battlefield in non-stop explosions. However, Damon was slowly but surely losing out to the lightning domain attacks. John put away his sword, as it was slowing him down. Now that he was one-on-one against Damon, he no longer had a concern for his fists not being strong enough. Lightning coated John's legs as he dashed forward, instantly appearing next to Damon. His fists punched out rapidly in a non-stop barrage against Damon's sword, causing Damon's arms to feel like they were shattering with every blow. John's body was like a blur as he danced around Damon with incredible speed, landing punches and blows from every direction. Lightning rained down non-stop on the two of them, making the situation even harder for Damon to defend. Boom! A lightning domain attack managed to get through Damon's defense, bathing him in pure destructive lightning. The lightning coursed through his body, slowing his movements and filling him with agony. Bang! John's fist landed on Damon's unguarded chest, and Damon was thrown back violently by the force of the attack. The sound of shattering ribs echoed out, and Damon violently collided against the formation wall. Blood spewed out of Damon's mouth, and he struggled to get up as fast as possible. Bang! John suddenly landed down from above, having jumped over from his previous position. He landed hard on Damon's outstretched leg, shattering it completely. Gah! Damon cried out in pain, and once again as John stomped down with all his might once more, shattering his other leg. Chi! John's hand pierced forward like a knife, piercing directly into Damon's abdomen. His dantian was instantly crippled. Damon, the lofty blood-fiend sect emperor who stood at the top amongst all the youths of the land, had lost. Chapter 243. Bloodfiend Demise. John stared down at the now powerless Damon, his cold eyes burning with bloodlust. "Your death will be a tribute to Russell," John said to Damon, who was clutching his abdomen in pain. Even now, Damon did not want to give up. His life was far too good to lose it like this. However, he quickly realized the futility of it all without his dantian. Damon looked up to John, and a smirk appeared on his pained face. "That friend of yours beg." Chi. John's hand slashed sideways, severing Damon's head from his body. John did not want to give him the luxury of having the last laugh before he died. Damon's lifeless corpse collapsed to the ground. The Blood Emperor, one of the most gifted youths on the entire Yuan Continent, was dead. John collected Damon's corpse and felt some anger wash away from his body. He was unable to save Russell, but at least he had avenged him. John turned to look at the other two battlefields. Although he was at the end of his chi reserves, he still had a bit left to help them. Miko's sword slashed sideways towards the Sword Emperor, glowing with a soft white light. The Sword Emperor stood there like he was in a daze, not realizing Miko's sword was cleaving straight towards his neck. Clearly, he was under the control of one of Miko's powerful soul arts. Chi. Miko's sword sliced straight into the dazed Sword Emperor's neck, severing it cleanly. A brief moment of comprehension and fear washed over the Sword Emperor's face as he snapped back to reality, but it was too late to change anything. His body fell to the ground, dead. Another prodigy of the Bloodfiend sect was dead. John walked over to Miko and patted him on the shoulders. "Thanks." He collected the body of the Sword Emperor and tossed the Sword Emperor's spatial ring to Miko. Miko was slightly confused why John wanted the body and not the treasures of the Sword Emperor, but said nothing about it. He knew John always had a purpose in his actions. Boom. A loud boom echoed behind John and Miko, causing them to turn around to the source. Kirai was still fighting against Azalea and Kaiden, still locked in a stalemate. Blood soaked the bodies of all three of the fighters, showing how intense it had been. John nodded his head in approval at Kirai's display. Kirai is only in the mid-core formation realm, and he was able to hold his own against one mid and one late-core formation opponent. This is his first fight, and he's displaying such combat prowess. John was truly impressed with Kirai's display. He quickly dashed over to the battlefield, and Miko followed. John appeared like a blur behind Kaiden, punched out with his fist, landing a powerful blow on his back. Gah! Kaiden screamed out in pain as his spine shattered. John pointed his finger at Kaiden. Lightning ruin. A powerful lighting beam slammed against Kaiden, piercing right through his body. Another blood-fiend prodigy was dead. John, Miko, and Kyrie all turned to look at Azalea. Her once proud face was now completely exhausted and filled with fear. Taking quite note of the dire situation, she paused and spoke out to John. Unlike those other idiots, I'm not nearly stupid enough to enter this land without a lifeline, Azalea said, as a spatial talisman suddenly appeared in her hand. She instantly crushed it, giving John and Miko no time to stop her. The spatial fluctuations wrapped around her body, swiftly taking her away. John frowned as he saw her quickly leave. However, he wasn't too upset at the situation. He had wanted to kill Damon, and he had achieved his goal. As for keeping today's events a secret, John knew that wasn't possible either. Here were many witnesses from the Divine Soul Sect and Supreme Battle Sect, and unless John killed them all, word would get out about today's events. Even if he wanted to kill all those who witnessed the fight, he wouldn't be able to stop them all from leaving. As such, John made no effort to contain the news. The only thing he could do was continue to raise his strength and fight back against whatever came to him. John's powerful aura faded from his body as he once again returned to normal. His face was pale, and wounds dotted his entire body, a sign of the intense battle he had just fought. The crowd behind him stared in stunned silence at what they had just witnessed. When they saw the emperors leave the arch, their cultivations all in the late core formation realm, they assumed John was dead. However, against all odds, he had managed to kill all but one. While he did have help from both Kyrie and Miko to be able to do so, the battle prowess he just displayed was unlike anything they had ever heard of. Even the Heavenly Lightning Sect, who were slightly used to John's displays, were stunned silent. John popped a healing pill in his mouth, as well as one of the chi recovery pills he had bought earlier from his sect. He sat heavily on the ground, his body completely exhausted from the grueling fight. He had used the second form of the Immortal Asura transformation art for quite some time, and also wielded the extremely heavy sword. These two things placed an enormous burden on John's body, and he would need quite some time to recover. Miko sat on the ground next to John, as well as Kyrie. Kyrie nudged up against John in a loving manner, his head rubbing against his chest. John rubbed Kyrie's head and gave him a healing pill as well, which Kyrie happily swallowed. Adam arrived next to John at this time as well, patting John on the shoulders in a proud and happy manner. I was worried you were finally in over your head. You truly are a crazy bastard, Adam said. John chuckled slightly and gestured to Adam while speaking to Miko. This is Adam, who I met in the Heavenly Lightning Sect. He was the one who set up the formation around the battlefield, and just like you, I consider him as my brother. Miko's looked up towards Adam, who stood there with a proud expression on his face after being described by John in such a manner. Adam's proud face slightly paled as Miko's eyes stared straight into his own. It was like he was being stared at by an ancient monster, whose very look could pierce into his soul. The pride look on Adam's face instantly died down, and he meekly sat down on the ground next to John and Adam. He realized he was in the company of two complete cultivation anomalies and had no grounds to act proud here. After a brief inspection, Miko broke out into laughter and patted Adam on the back. Not bad, not bad. Anyone who John considers a brother is also my brother. Adam breathed out a sigh of relief and greeted Miko back as well. Miko suddenly turned to John and asked the question that had been on his mind the entire time. John, I thought you were dead. How did you manage to survive? John's expression was slightly surprised at Miko's question. Celestial Soldren's soul found its way to Miko when he left the Pocket Realm, and should have relayed the information that I'm alive to Miko. I guess Solrend truly was in an incredibly weakened state, like he said, and must have gone into a slumber as soon as he found Miko. John decided to ask a probing question to ascertain if he was right. When the world collapsed, I was forced out through a different spatial channel and found myself appearing by the heavenly lightning sect. What about you? What happened when you left? So that's what happened, Miko replied. As for me, when the realm collapsed, I felt a strange force wash over me and then left the realm. I'm not sure what happened, but my soul cultivation has improved greatly ever since I left that realm, Miko continued. It seems like Solrend truly is asleep then, or he would have told Miko all about what happened. John patted Miko on the shoulders once more. Sounds like you got a nice reward from that pocket realm then, but how did you end up in the Divine Soul sect and become its soul sage? Miko nodded his head at John's first comment, before elaborating on the second. After the realm closed, those powerful cultivators that had always tried to recruit me returned once more. With you gone, I had no reason to stay in those lands, and so I accepted. The sect leader instantly made me her direct disciple and gave me the moniker of Soul Sage, Miko explained. So that's what happened, John exclaimed. It had been completely unexpected to see Miko be the Soul Sage. Although John was still confident in being able to kill Daemon and the Sword Emperor without Miko's help, he would have been at a much greater risk of being cut down himself in the process. Miko's surprise arrival had truly been a blessing. John and Miko continued to talk about everything that had happened to them up to this point, while Adam and Kyrie sat there in silence, listening to the conversation. Miko detailed his journey in the Divine Soul sect and wastelands and everything that happened up to this point. John did the same, revealing the reason for his battle with the Bloodfiend sect disciples. Those bastards, they dare cut down one of our brothers. Their deaths were more than deserved, Miko replied in slight anger. Any brother of John's was a brother of himself, and although Miko did not know Russell, he still felt anger for his death. With Daemon's death, Russell has been avenged, John replied with a slightly sullen tone. The conversation eventually led to the arch trials, at which point John's gaze lingered on the fourth arch from which Miko had emerged. What happened once you entered the fourth trial? John asked curiously. Chapter 244, Miko's Trial Flash. A flash of light appeared, revealing a heavily breathing girl. She had appeared in a large courtyard, directly in front of a towering castle. The cast was red, black, and purple, and towered several thousand yards into the sky. It was grand enough to rival the heavenly lightning palace. It emitted an incredibly ominous and foreboding aura, as if it would swallow whole whoever entered and never spit them back out. Guards were seen patrolling the outside of the castle, each emanating a powerful and slightly dark aura. Space twisted, and a person suddenly appeared in front of the girl. Azalea, why have you returned so soon, and in defeat it appears? The man before her asked with a cold voice. Azalea felt a shiver creep up his spine as she bowed to the man before her. Sect leader Alfiend. The man's face remained emotionless. Speak, what happened within the lands you entered? All of the four great sects were curious as to what existed in the Forbidden Lands. If their disciples could obtain powerful artifacts for them, then that would be greatly beneficial for their ascendance to the top of the Yuan Continent. Azalea paused for a moment before beginning to describe her journey through the mysterious lands. She knew she couldn't lie, as if Alfiend detected that she had lied to him, her fate would be miserable. Azalea detailed the various things she encountered, and eventually got to the massive temple at the center of the ancient city. Sect leader Alfiend stood there in silence, listening to her story with an emotionless face. Azalea eventually got to the arch trials and detailed what happened within. Sect leader Alfiend slightly raised his eyebrows at this part, coming to a conclusion about the ancient city and its trials within. After revealing the trials, she paused, unsure of how to continue. Alfiend noticed this and frowned. Speak, what happened next? Azalea grit her teeth and began to speak once more. She detailed what happened when they all left the arch trials and her battle with John, Kyrie, and Miko. However, she left out the cultivation level of John, as she knew Alfiend would most likely severely punish her for losing to someone with such a low cultivation. Alfiend, assuming that John was in the late core formation realm as well, did not ask for his cultivation. The cultivation world knew jumping realms was incredibly difficult, and killing above one's realm nearly impossible. Azalea breathed a slight sigh of relief when Alfiend did not ask for clarification on John's cultivation. However, a completely displeased look appeared on Alfiend's face as the end of Azalea's story. "So, you allowed Damon and Killeen to die before you, and all you could do was flee?" Alfiend asked in a cold and displeased voice. A panicked expression appeared on Azalea's face, but all she could do was nod. "In that case, take yourself to the dungeons. You'll spend the next month within," Alfiend replied. Fear washed over Azalea's face, but all she could do was nod. She began to leave, dreading the next month of pain and torture. Sect leader Alfiend frowned, and a dark expression appeared on his face after Azalea had left. "It seems both the Heavenly Lightning Sect and Divine Soul Sect have found themselves some incredible new prodigies. It seems we'll have to trim some weeds soon." "When I entered the trial, I was transported to an empty room." Miko began to explain what happened when he entered the fourth arch. "A strange energy washed over me, at which a shadow figure appeared before me. They began demonstrating a soul technique, at which I first thought was to attack me. Only after watching for a while did I realize I needed to study the technique and emulate it. I figured out the technique after a while, at which point the shadow figure disappeared, and an image of a boy around my age appeared. His cultivation was at the half-step core formation realm, while I was at the early core formation realm. I thought he was real at first, but quickly realized it was a formation," Miko explained. The crowds of youths that had been watching the battle had slightly calmed down and began to enter the arch trials once more. As they passed by the seated group of John, Miko, Adam, and Kyrie, they looked at them with a mixture of awe and fear. Miko took a sip of water before continuing. "Despite my opponent being below my cultivation, he was actually quite strong. It took some effort, even from me, to defeat him." John raised his eyebrows at this information. Miko's battle prowess was terrifying, and someone with a weaker cultivation giving him trouble was surprising. However, since it was just a formation and not a real cultivator, John didn't know if the power of that youth was truly accurate. After I defeated him, another youth, a girl this time, showed up. She was the same cultivation as me and radiated an incredibly strong soul aura, nearly equal to my own. I fought her, and the battle was quite intense, but I won out. Lastly, another boy showed up, and his power was shocking. His cultivation was the same as me, and his soul was nearly on par with my own. While I had a stronger soul power, his battle arts were far more profound than what I had. The battle raged on for quite some time, and I barely managed to win over him. After I won, a strange energy washed over me once again, and I found both my Danshan and soul power rose a level, sending me directly to the middle core formation realm, Miko elaborated. John sat there silently, listening to the whole ordeal. It was surprising that someone as powerful as Miko struggled like that, but when John thought about the fact that his enemies were just formations, it made more sense. The formation could make the enemies as strong as they wanted, regardless of cultivation level. Based on Miko's description, John was not surprised that the other youths that entered the fourth arch had all perished. If Miko struggled within, then there was no hope for the other youths. These ancient people were quite brutal, making trials with either victory or death as the conditions. Not only that, but I was rewarded with choosing some weapons and items, and I chose this sword, Miko stated as he raised his sword in front of him. It was incredibly powerful and radiated an ancient aura. John inspected the sword and nodded his head in approval. It was truly an impressive weapon, and would serve Miko well even through the Meridian Forging realm. In fact, it was so incredible that he could maybe use it through the Heaven Tribulation realm. Normal weapons increased in weight as they went higher grades, making them impossible to wield for weaker cultivators. However, Miko's weapon specialized in speed and was incredibly light and sharp. Not only that, but it was made of a special material that amplified soul power, revealing just how incredible it was. John and Miko continued to talk about the trial Miko experienced, while John also focused on recovery. Nearly half a day later, with the help of many healing pills and chi recovery pills, John finally managed to heal himself back to full strength. However, his blood essence reserves were incredibly low due to his recent battle. By John's estimate, he had slightly less than a minute of using his Immortal Asura transformation art before running out of blood essence, and therefore running out of body chi. While it's amazing when I have the blood essence reserves, as I can replenish my reserves at my whim, only being able to make body chi from blood essence is quite troublesome when I don't have any blood essence left. John did have the blood essence of the blood fiend youths he had recently slain, but using such precious human blood essence for chi reserves, instead of raising his body cultivation, was an extreme waste. John only used beast blood essence for replenishing chi reserves, as it could not raise his cultivation. An idea suddenly came to John, and he looked back to Miko. "Miko, do you have any beast corpses? Preferably ones in the core formation realm," John asked. The higher the beast cultivation, the better the blood would be for replenishing his chi. Miko found the question quite strange, but nodded his head. "I killed several beasts on my way over here. I think I have 3 core formation beast corpses," Miko replied. John's eyes lit up, and he gave Miko a storage ring with 100,000 spirit crystals. His wealth, after having found that spirit crystal mine, was immense. "Can I buy them off you?" John asked. Miko inspected the ring and frowned. "You expect me to accept this shit?" Miko feigned anger. He tossed back John's spatial ring, which John quickly accepted and inspected. The corpses of 2 core formation beasts laid inside, as well as the spirit crystals. John smiled at Miko's antics. "Thanks." Miko nodded his head in approval. "That's more like it." Confidence once again welled within John. "With these 2 corpses, it should add several minutes to my time at which I can use my Immortal Asura transformation art. In that case." John's eyes trailed towards the 4th arch and paused for a moment before looking towards the 5th arch. An extremely dreadful and terrifying aura emanated from the arch, as if all those who entered were destined for death. Based on the aura alone, all the youths in the area had assumed that the arch was just a death arch, with no trial within. Surely no trail could have such a dreadful power within. However, based on the words on the top of the arch, John knew otherwise. "Divine. The talent needed to pass the trial is divine. I wonder what level of talent that is." Chapter 245, entering the arch, John compared his talent next to Miko's. Miko revealed incredible battle prowess in his battle against the Sword Emperor, and had managed to jump a minor realm and even kill the Sword Emperor. Such talent truly was amazing. And John was sure that Miko had not revealed his trump cards in that battle. However, with his incredibly unique and powerful inheritances, as well as cultivation situation, John was completely confident in his talent, or at least combat prowess, being above all others. Not only that, but he had managed 20 Danshan core compressions, raising that talent even further. While his talent before could be attributed to his mysterious sphere Danshan, now it could be attributed to his own talent. "Oh yeah, how many core compressions did you manage to achieve? I'm sure you did quite well," John suddenly asked Miko. If he could know this information, he could gauge his talent against Miko's. With Miko's incredible talent, John expected 8 to 10 compressions to be the answer. Pride lit up in Miko's eyes at the question as he began to laugh wildly. "Ha ha ha, of course I managed to do well. I got 14 core compressions," Miko replied. Both John and Adam thought they heard wrong, and asked Miko to repeat himself. "Yes, I got 14, Miko replied, his face full of pride. "When I reached 9 compressions, I hit my limit and was about to end it, when all of a sudden I felt a strange mix of power well up within my body, which aided 5 more compressions," Miko elaborated. Adam sat there in complete speechlessness, truly wondering how he had become acquainted with 2 monsters such as John and Miko. 10 was the known limit to Adam and the rest of the Yuan Continent. and yet both of these monsters had been able to completely shatter that barrier. Not only that, but 10 was the limit of the absolute pinnacle prodigies relegate to only myths and legends, let alone the compression counts that were realistically obtainable. Meanwhile, John began to surmise about that strange energy. It must have been from Celestial Soul Rend. Miko is his true successor, so I'm sure he used some weird technique to aid Miko's compressions. However, whatever the true reason, John was truly happy for Miko. The more powerful he was, the stronger of an ally and friend he would have in the future. "How many did you get?" Miko suddenly asked John with great curiosity. He had always been extremely competitive against John. John cleared his throat before replying. "I did pretty well." "Pretty well my ass," Adam suddenly spoke up in an annoyed tone. "This bastard got 20 compressions. 20, how the hell is that even possible?" Adam raged out, although mostly in joking. Miko's face became stunned at the news, and he looked to John to see if it was a joke. John's relaxed look told him it was the truth, as he didn't correct Adam. 20, how the hell did you manage that? Miko asked in a stunned voice. "I guess I'm just much more talented than you, is all," John replied with a playful tone. He knew Miko thrived off competing with him, and this would only serve to motivate him further. Miko punched John on the arm as a fiery look appeared in his eyes. "I can't lose out on talent to you. I guess that just means I'll have to try even harder in the future," Miko replied. While he considered John his best friend and brother, he was incredibly competitive against him as well. This news only served to raise his desire for power even more. The group continued to chat for quite some time, as they ate around a bonfire they made. Roasted meat was consumed in great amounts, while the stories of everything interesting in each other's lives were told. While the group was conversing, a lone cultivator, unnoticed by any of the others, slipped into the fourth arch, disappearing from sight. After the feast was done, John replenished his blood essence reserves slightly with the 2 beasts Miko had donated. His eyes locked onto the fifth arch, determination burning in his eyes. Miko noticed John's gaze, as a surprised look appeared on his face. "Are you actually going to try the fifth arch?" Miko asked. "What, the fifth arch? Are you crazy?" Adam exclaimed. John smiled and replied to Miko. "Haha, you truly know me best. Yep, I think I'll enter the fifth arch," John replied. "Are you sure? That aura gives me a bad feeling," Miko replied. His instincts were incredibly sharp, and as such, he had avoided the fifth arch. "Yep," John replied once more, not elaborating any further. He knew it wasn't a death trial, and that as long as he qualified as having divine talent, he would be fine. With his unique cultivation, he was sure he qualified as such. Miko patted John on the back with several forceful slaps. "Well, good luck. Don't die on me in there." He knew there was no changing John's mind when he made it up. Adam still wanted to protest, but after seeing Miko's reaction, he remained silent. John stood up, stretching his aching legs as he readied himself to enter the fifth arch. Kirai noticed his change in mood and quickly slipped back into his soul space. "I'll return in a short while," John said to Miko and Adam as he began to walk towards the fifth arch. "Good luck," Adam replied. The youths all noticed John finally stand up and were curious as to his next move. However, shock appeared on their faces as they noticed which arch he was walking towards. "The fifth arch, surely he's not going to enter it," a divine soul sect youth spoke up. "Didn't you see his battle prowess? Maybe he can pass the trial," a proud heavenly lightning sect youth replied. "Yeah, but that aura is dreadful. Surely it's too much even for him," another youth replied. Heated discussions immediately broke out as everyone watched John calmly walk towards the fifth arch. He soon arrived before it, and to everyone's surprise, John entered it without hesitation. He didn't even pause for a moment. "He actually entered it," a youth exclaimed. "He's as good as dead then," Mason suddenly replied. He hoped John would perish, or he would never be able to rise to the top of the sect. All eyes focused on the dreadful fifth arch, waiting to see what the fate of John would be. Chapter 246, battle axe, John felt a strange energy wrap around himself as he suddenly found himself floating in an empty white void. Every direction was just filled with nothingness. However, the space was lit, as if there was light coming from every direction. Despite seemingly being in an empty void, John found himself standing on solid ground. A strange energy washed over him again, reminding John of what Miko told him. He felt the energy scan all the parts of his body, as if it was taking a note of his strength, talent, combat skills, and much, much more. John felt the energy wash over both his essence danshin and body danshin. It paused for a moment on his essence danshin, but skipped over his body danshin, as if it couldn't notice it. Even something as amazing as this trial can't detect it. Just what is this sphere's origins? The energy finished washing over John, as if it had completed its inspection of him. A shadowed figure suddenly began to materialize in the void, sending John into high alert. The figure was similar to what Miko had initially described, at which point Miko was forced to learn a technique from it. Suddenly, 4 flashes of light appeared before John, before quickly fading. The flashes revealed 4 different weapons, which hung in the void directly in front of him. The weapons were a pair of gauntlets, a large battle hammer, a large, 2-handed, 2-sided battle axe, and a saber. John frowned as he stared at the weapons. He sent his divine sense to bring out his ancient sword, but was surprised to find that he could not do so. There seemed to be some restrictions on accessing his sword. John stared at the sword and the shadowed figure, who stood there silently. After some time, John came to a conclusion as to what was going on. I guess that energy scanned my body and came to the conclusion that these weapons suit me the best. I suppose I'll have to pick one, John murmured out loud. While he did not really want to learn another weapon other than his scythe, John had come to the conclusion a while ago that it was not the perfect weapon for him. The scythe focused on speed and sharpness, but not power. While his immense essence power was able to unleash incredibly sharp and agile attacks, he was leaving half of his power behind by not utilizing the full power of his body, as scythes could not fully utilize power. Not only that, but scythes were quite hard to come by, both in weapons and techniques. My divine reaping scythe is far too profound and powerful to stop using, but it's only good through the core formation realm, at which point I'll have to find another technique, or the second part of it. I suppose having a backup weapon to fully take advantage of my powerful body isn't such a bad thing. If I can switch out between precision and power in battles that most suit that aspect, that would greatly boost my combat power. John had intensively studied weapon theory back in his early days and had become comfortable with many weapons. These weapons included a battle axe and a saber, both of which he found quite easy and straightforward to use. I can utilize both my scythe and another weapon, I suppose. My scythe when speed and sharpness is required, while another weapon when raw power is required. John's eyes locked once again on the weapons in front of him. The gauntlets are quite nice, but the power they give is not worth the range that is lost. Not only that, but my fists are basically gauntlets themselves, so it's mostly a waste. The battle hammer is also nice, and would be the best for sheer power, but I don't really like its simple combat style. John's eyes locked onto the battle axe and the saber, both in which he had trained with as a youth. He had confidence in wielding both, as he had solid fundamentals with them. If this trial was similar to Miko's, then John would have to emulate whatever the shadow figure taught him. Doing so with a weapon most familiar to him would be the easiest way to do so. A saber is more powerful than a sword, but less powerful in pure attack power than a 2-handed battle axe. If I'm going for a weapon to maximize my attack power, then I should choose the axe. Not only was the axe an incredibly powerful weapon, it was also the most similar to his scythe in terms of how to wield it. Its handle length was similar, and both the scythe and the battle axe had its blade concentrated at the far end of the handle. This would make it much easier to grasp the concepts of using it than compared to gauntlets or a saber. John's hand reached out and grabbed the 2-handed battle axe. The handle of the battle axe was 5 feet long, and had fantastic silver runes carved all along its black handle. The one side of the axe was an incredibly sharp and large crescent blade, a few feet across, also containing small runes carved into its surface. Small gold and red trimmings lined the blade, making it look quite impressive. The other side had a smaller yet sharper protrusion, acting as a small counterbalance to the large crescent blade. The weight of the axe quickly overwhelmed his one hand, forcing him to grab it with both hands to stabilize it. How heavy! The battle axe was almost as heavy as the ancient sword, although it was only a core formation grade weapon. However, it felt completely natural in his hands, as if he had found the perfect weapon. It was similar to when he first noticed and picked up a scythe, although in a different way. He swung it out a few times, testing the power of the axe. The air rippled from the force of each blow, despite it only being a brute force attack. John's face lit up as he tested the weapon, truly appreciating its power. With this, I can fully unleash the true strength of my body. John's thoughts were interrupted as the shadowed figure finally moved. A massive two-handed, two-sided battle axe suddenly appeared in the shadowed figure's hands. The figure raised the battle axe, and it began to emit an incredible battle aura. John's eyes focused on the shadow figure and its weapon as he prepared to tackle the first trial of the fifth arch. He felt a strange aura wrap around him, pressing down on him by the second. Chapter 247, Power, Annihilation, Destruction. John felt an aura lock down on him as if slightly embracing him. Ahem. John stopped to inspect the aura, but much to his surprise, it got ever so slightly tighter around him. Is it constricting me? John could feel that slowly but surely the aura was pressing down on him, as if it would crush him eventually. However, his attention was once again moved to the shadow figure, as it held the battle axe above its head. John's eyes locked on both the shadow figure and the battle axe, making sure to miss no details. He would think about the strange aura later. The figure held the axe in the air for a brief moment, before it casually slashed it downwards in front of it. The attack looked completely relaxed and natural, as if the shadow figure was merely lowering the axe. Death. The word entered John's mind as the axe slashed down in front of him. As if seeing a vision, John saw the white void split apart before him, as the axe tore the entire void asunder. His breathing rapidly increased as he thought he was about to die, but found that he was completely all right, as if he was in a separate dimension compared to the shadow figure. The void instantly healed before John, returning to normal once more. The shadow figure raised its axe above its head once more and slashed down in the same manner. Power. The word filled John's mind in a similar manner to the first, as if the axe was speaking to him. The void once more tore asunder from the seemingly casual attack, the exact same as the first time. The void healed once more, and the shadow figure slashed out again. Annihilation. The same scene continued to play out before him, of the shadow figure slashing out with the axe, and the entire void being torn asunder. Every slash filled John's head with a word, although he was uncertain exactly what was going on and how those words were coming to mind. He watched the shadow figure slash out countless times, trying to grasp what it was doing. However, he could detect no battle art at all from the figure, as all it seemed was a simple slash. Is it some sort of concealed battle art? Or is the power of this shadow figure so immense that a casual slash from it results in such power? John sat down on the ground and watched the figure continue to slash the axe out. No matter how he looked at it, all John could see was a casual attack, unfueled by a battle art, strike out with immense power. Ahem. John once again felt the strange aura wrap around him, pushing down on him with even greater force. While it was not a physical restriction, John could feel that the power of the aura pressing down on him was growing greater and greater. It's a time trial. John realized what was going on. This strange energy will continue to grow in power until I pass this trial, or the energy kills me. John initially felt that this trial was too easy for the fifth arch, as it was just watching the shadow figure attack and learning from it. Now, however, there was a time limit. This trial is testing comprehensions. Not only must a divine talent have divine battle prowess, they must have divine comprehensions as well, or they will quickly fall behind their peers in the future. Now that John fully understood what was going on, he focused on the shadow figure with his full concentration. Slash. Destruction. Slash. Annihilation. Slash. Power. The same scene continued to play out again and again, while the same few words filled John's mind. He meditated on the attack, the words, and the seemingly hidden battle art, but was getting nowhere. John stood up and raised his axe above his head in a similar fashion to the shadow figure. He slashed it down, causing the air to ripple from the force of the attack. However, there was no destruction at all, and his attack felt completely different in both power and profundity when compared to the shadow figure. It seems to be a simple slash. Why is it so profound and also so powerful? John continued to slash outwards, doing his best to mimic the attack perfectly. His form continued to improve on the slash, and John could feel his affinity with the axe steadily grow. However, no matter what he did, he was unable to emulate the attack. Time continued to grind on, and John could feel the strange energy continue to press down on him. While it was ignorable at first, it continued to steadily grow. Its power was now at a level that even John could not ignore, and he felt death slowly but surely creep up on him. John had lost track of time, as the endless void gave him no hints towards time. He could have been in here for a few hours or a few days. It was the same to John. I've been in here for who knows how long, and I still haven't made any progress. John didn't expect a divine talent trial to be easy, but he didn't expect it to be this hard as well. He could tell that his time was running out. Not wanting to panic, John once again sat down and calmed his mind. He formed a meditative link with his palace realm, falling into a trance and raising his comprehensions to their peak. His axe was laid out on top of his legs, his fingers slowly tracing the blade of the axe. His eyes locked onto the shadow figure, but instead of focusing on the figure, he focused solely on the axe this time. He washed out all other thoughts and only had the axe in his mind. Slash. Power. Slash. Destruction. Slash. Annihilation. The words echoed in his mind like drums. Without realizing it, John fell into a rhythm, as if forming a connection to both the axe he was watching. And the words, they were speaking out to him. Power. Destruction. Annihilation. The words continued to beat in his mind like an endless drumming, while John soon forgot himself, the trial, and everything else. All that filled his mind was the axe. His world was the axe. Everything was the axe. The strange pressure pressed down on John with even greater power, seemingly nearing the end of the trial. However, despite death quickly approaching, John ignored it as he only focused on the axe. The words that seemed to speak to John continued to grow in volume, until John felt like his mind was shattering with each echo. His mind was being driven to the edge, but his focus remained. He pressed through the soul-tearing pain, as the words seemed to sear their teachings into his mind and flesh. Time lost all meaning to John, as he focused only on the axe before him. The pressure continued to grow, nearing the very end of the trial's time limit. The Tao of the axe, the Tao of power, the Tao of destruction, the Tao of annihilation. As his time came to an end, John's comprehensions snapped together, understanding finally washing over him. He stood up, still in a trance, and raised his axe above his head. The comprehensions that had come to him swirled in his mind, and he casually slashed his axe forward. The axe seemed to fall before him, as if he was dropping it. The motion was simple, yet the void seemed to tremble as the axe fell. There was no physical power behind the attack. Silence, and then, boom! The void before John split open from the power of the attack. The fissures spread for dozens of yards in each direction. While paling in comparison to the destruction the shadow figure caused, a similar power and intent spread out, cleaving the void. John's calm eyes suddenly brightened as he finally snapped out of his trance. He suddenly realized the pressure around him was incredibly powerful and felt as if he would die at any moment. However, just as he thought he was at his end, the pressure vanished. John breathed out a massive sigh of relief as he had seemingly managed to pass the trial just in time. The void before him healed, returning to pristine white once more. The axe still rested in his hands, as if it was the reward for passing the trial. No wonder that attack was so difficult to understand. There was no battle art. Its power stemmed only from the Tao's infused into its attack. Not only that, but there were 3 Tao's mixed together, forming a perfect fusion of power, annihilation, and destruction. How profound. John had only managed to grasp the very initial fundamentals of the 3 Tao's, but even that resulted in his slash having incredible destructive power. John slashed his axe out once more, infusing the newfound comprehensions he had obtained into the blade. Boom! The void trembled once more as it was torn apart in front of John. A large smile lit up on his face, as his new weapon and Tao insights were now an incredible source of attack power for him. Flash! A bright light appeared before John, revealing the start of his next trial. Chapter 248, Second Trial. The axe followed John into the next trial as well, comforting him greatly. With his scythe destroyed, it was his best hope of passing the trials ahead of him. While the sword he had was powerful, he didn't have any good comprehensions or insights towards it, unlike the axe. It seems that although this divine trial is sure death to those below that talent level, it's also a great boon as well. I have obtained an amazing weapon and incredible Tao insights. John looked before him after the light faded, revealing him to be in a completely new area. John once again found himself standing in the void, however. This void was not an endless expanse of white like before, but instead an endless expanse of darkness. Countless stars shimmered in the far distance, providing light within the void, making it not completely pitch black. Before him, a 10-yard-wide bridge of light stretched out as far as he could see. Other than the bridge, there was nothing. John peered over the side of the bridge and only saw a black expanse of nothingness below him. A thought crossed his mind, and he took out an insignificant weapon from one of his spatial rings. John threw it over the edge, and his eyes trailed the weapon as it fell down unhindered, eventually disappearing into the pitch darkness of the void below. A shiver crawled up his spine at the sight. It seems as if below this bridge is truly an endless void. I need to make sure to stay on the path before me. John once again looked back towards the light bridge. After composing himself and searching for any danger, he took a step forward. Boom! His foot slammed onto the bridge's surface with great force, sending pain washing up his legs. His legs buckled from the unexpected force as he hastily increased his power to withstand the pressure. John took another step. Boom! His foot slammed against the bridge once more, sending out a deafening sound from the force of the impact. John's body was now fully on the light bridge, and he felt the pressure on his full body. Even with his incredibly powerful body, John felt it difficult to resist the pressure on the bridge. What the hell is up with all these pressure trials? John grumbled as he stabilized himself. There was the pressure trial on the stairs outside, and now this trial. However, the pressure on the light bridge was countless times more profound and powerful than the outside staircase trial, giving even John a hard time. Boom! 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 John slowly but surely continued to walk forward, resisting the pressure washing down on him. Each step he took, he could tell that the pressure was slowly but surely growing stronger. I'll advance through this trial for as long as possible without using my supreme battle art or Immortal Asura transformation art, as my blood essence reserves are limited. John relied just on the strength of his body to resist the pressure. However, the pressure was not only physical. He could feel the pressure invade his body, pressing down on his dantian in an attempt to crush it, as well as on his soul in an attempt to overwhelm it. He heard murmurs, enticing him to step off the edge of the bridge. However, he ignored them, his soul resisting their charms. Had he not cultivated in front of both the holy gate, increasing his soul power, and the sinister gate, increasing his will, John felt that he might have fallen victim to these murmurs. At the same time, John scoffed at the pressure on his dantian. He had a 20 times compressed dantian, which was incredibly firm. The pressure would need to be far greater to threaten his dantian. However, John understood the reason for this pressure. If someone with an average, or even an above-average dantian entered this trial, it would be crushed under this immense pressure. Based on the power of the pressure, I'm guessing only someone who achieved 10 compressions would be able to withstand it, and even then just barely. While John was fine against this dantian pressure, he once again became slightly shocked at the profundity of the trials. 10 compressions was considered the peak of the human realm, the absolute pinnacle of what someone could achieve. For that to be the baseline requirement was quite shocking. John smirked at himself for thinking the divine trials would be easy for him based on his battle prowess. These trials were testing every aspect of his cultivation, making sure he had no flaws. Only such a cultivator could become divine. John continued to slowly walk forward, feeling the pressure rain down on his body, dantian, and soul. Every step made the next one more difficult, and the pressure was beginning to grow hard for even him. Sweat began to drip down his forehead as he exerted himself greatly. His bones creaked from the pressure on them. His soul began to ache greatly from the power of the trial. Ahem. John paused for a moment as he carefully inspected his body. The overwhelming pressure made John focus on his journey forward, but he finally noticed some changes within his body. The pressure washed over every cell, cleansing them of impurities and ever so subtly changing the nature of his cells. His muscles began to be refined even further, while his blood was purified and cleansed. John could feel his body, which was already incredibly pure and powerful, become even more so. Not only that, but the constant pressure on his soul slowly but surely strengthened it, as long as he could resist its nearly overwhelming power. His face lit up with joy. With every trial comes opportunity. John suddenly quickened his pace and strode with great speed through the trial. Every step increased the pressure on him, and before long the pressure grew to a level that even John could no longer withstand. He grit his teeth tightly, while he resisted the immense pain on his body and soul. Here, John found his current limit and suddenly sat down in a meditative position. The pressure continued to rain down on him, and John allowed it to wash over him. Even while seated, John struggled against the immense pressure. While I could force my body and dantian through this trial, my soul would not be able to withstand that. I need to raise its power first before I continue. Chapter 249. Cleansing one's body. John sat on the light bridge in silent pain, resisting the constant pressure of the trial. The trial not only tested body, dantian, and soul talent, but also willpower. Only those with incredibly firm wills would be able to resist the pain of this trial. Those with even slightly weaker wills would eventually be overcome by the trial and either go mad or give up. Either way, they would perish. Even for John, with his great pain tolerance, the trial was driving him to the edge. However, he resisted the pain as best he could, while he allowed the mysterious pressure to slowly but surely cleanse and strengthen his body and soul. John sat there with no concern for the passage of time. He no longer knew how long he had been sitting there, and no longer cared. His body and soul were going through immense changes, allowing him to ascend in power once more. A foul-smelling black substance began to emit from his pores, as all the impurities within his body were forcefully removed by the pressure. John steeled his mind and resisted the smell, as he continued to expel all the impurities from his body. As he did so, he could tell that the quality of every cell in his body improved, and that his chi seemed to flow easier within his body, unhindered by the impurities that existed there before. The process continued for several hours, until no more impurities were expelled. John finally opened his eyes after sitting on the bridge for an unknown amount of time. Chi flared from his body, washing away all the impurities with great force. His robe had been sullied, and so he threw his robe away, quickly donning a new one. John quickly sent his divine sense to inspect his body. His skin now glowed slightly with a lustrous sheen, smooth and flawless. His muscles rippled with incredible power, while his blood flowed cleanly and purely. His body looked like it was carved from marble. His soul now resisted the pressure with much more ease. John spread his divine sense outwards and was surprised to find it had nearly doubled in the distance it could reach. Both his soul and his body had gone through immense changes. John smiled at the great changes within his body as he slowly stood up and stretched his legs. I must have been sitting there for days or even weeks. I can't really tell, but I can tell my body has been purified to immense levels and my talent and power improved. It had been an arduous time, and even John felt like he was going to go mad from the pain at times, but he always grit his teeth and steeled his mind, pushing through the pain. The pressure washing down on John felt much less severe now, and John felt himself able to move much more freely than before. He began to walk forward, his pace much more relaxed than before. Boom! Each step caused the light bridge to quake from the force of his steps. John's bones creaked from each step, but he was able to withstand the pain and walk forward. Boom! 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 His pace remained steady as he walked forward, eventually spotting the end of the light bridge. Solid ground was visible at the far end, and John's eyes lit up at the sight of it. Fog washed over the land, making him unable to peer deeply within it, but he could tell that it was the end of this trial. He quickened his pace, doing his best to ignore the pressure of the trial, which was the greatest at the very end. His breathing became heavy. However, his quick forward momentum suddenly came to a near halt, as if he had run into a wall. John felt the pressure nearly solidify, and he felt like he was trapped in quicksand. The end of the trial was a mere dozen yards away, but the pressure at the very end of the trial was incredible, not allowing him to move forward. Not only that, but the pain had amplified several-fold, nearly driving him mad before he stabilized his mind and soul. John thought about sitting here and cultivating like before, but quickly washed the idea out of his head. The pressure was far too great to do such a thing. If he attempted to do so, the only result would be his death. I need to push through as quickly as possible. Supreme battle art. John activated his second strongest body state and began to press forward. Boom! Boom! The ground quaked with every step, as John was able to slowly but surely move forward in this state against the pressure. Every step increased the pressure even more, pushing both his body and mind to the brink of collapse. Just a bit more. At the very last step, John found himself unable to continue, despite using the supreme battle art. Immortal Asura transformation art. His body suddenly surged with incredible power, giving him the strength needed to step forward. Boom! John's foot finally stepped forward, breaking free of the final hurdle. It slammed powerfully on the solid ground, and John quickly stepped onto it. He quickly deactivated the transformation art, making sure to keep his beast blood essence reserves as high as possible. John collapsed to the ground and began to breathe heavily. Sweat dripped down his body as he struggled to catch his breath. The trial had truly been both incredibly hard as well as incredibly painful. However, he had managed to pass it, relieving him greatly. Not only that, but he had obtained great benefits from it. Your talent is quite good, but you're incredibly stupid. A voice suddenly spoke out behind him, shocking John greatly. He had not detected anyone after he stepped on the land bridge. He quickly turned around and spotted the talking figure. His eyes lit up in shock and surprise. Before him, an immense figure stood there within the fog, peering down on him like he was an insignificant ant. Chapter 250. Haruth John stared up at the creature before him with great shock and even slight fear. Its power was completely overwhelming, and if it wanted to, it could kill him in an instant without him being able to resist. John couldn't tell its cultivation level, but could tell that it was far beyond his current realm. The creature was nearly 50 yards tall and had the body of a large ape. Its head was not that of an ape, but of a tiger. Massive wings spread out from its back, stretching far to each side. It was black in color, with hints of blue. Its eyes glowed with incredible power and profundity, as if it could see through John and into his very soul. It was a creature, unlike anything John had read about or heard about. However, his shock and fear was quickly replaced with slight displease at having been called stupid. "What the hell do you mean, stupid?" John asked in a displeased tone. The creature gazed down on John as if he was beneath him, and scoffed at his question. "I mean you're stupid. You could have passed the final portion of this trial in a much easier fashion," the creature responded in a low and ancient-sounding voice. Its voice reverberated loudly through the area, shaking John with its power. He had to use some strength just to withstand its voice. John thought about the trial and how he had passed the last portion. He used his Immortal Asura transformation art to get through, and didn't know of any other way that he could have accomplished that. John continued to think about it, and the creature realized his confusion. It shook its head once more at John's ignorance and spoke up again. "It matters not. You've passed the second trial of the divine trials and have reached the third." The creature paused for a moment and lowered its head down towards John. John took a step backwards instinctually, as the creature was nearly eye to eye with him. Its eyes tried to peer through all his secrets as it spoke up once more. "But before that, why do you possess their power?" the creature asked, its voice getting slightly colder. At the distance it was from John, its voice nearly overwhelmed John. John braced himself as best he could. "Them, who the hell are they? Be more specific," John replied with gritted teeth. "Do not lie to me," the creature said in a raised voice. "The power that you used to break through the final portion of the trial, where did you obtain it?" John finally understood what the creature was referring to. The Immortal Asura transformation art. Does this creature know something about the origins of this art? John thought for a moment to ask more about it, but remembered his last encounter with Karma. He was sure this was still far beyond his means to handle. How should I explain this? John didn't want to reveal too much, but could also tell that the creature was not in the mood for lies and games. "I can't say it's an inheritance that I found, or who knows if he will desire it. I also can't say it's natural to me, as it seems as if he does not like the source of this power. Maybe he has enmity with whoever made this transformation art, or the source of this power. Either way, I'm fucked right now." Just as John was about to respond, the creature scoffed and stood up straight. It peered down at John with cold eyes. "No matter. All traces of them must be eradicated. Despite your talent, you must die." Shock and panic appeared on John's face at these words. Without hesitation, he sent his divine sense into his spatial realm and took out his spatial talisman. He crushed his hand instantly to break it, seeking to leave this place immediately. He didn't know if it would work, but it was his only option. The talisman was crushed, instantly wrapping him with its spatial powers. HMPH, insignificant. The creature waved its hand, instantly shattering the spatial power of the talisman. John returned to normal once again, now completely out of options. The creature raised its hands above John, ready to slam down on him, killing him for good. "Wait," John yelled out. He wanted to try to reason with the beast. "Nothing you can say will change my mind. All traces must be eliminated." The creature began to slam its hand down towards John. John could not move, and all he could see was the end of his life fast approaching. Flash. A bright flash of light appeared between the creature and John, and the creature instantly stopped its hand. While confused at first, the creature's eyes opened wide in surprise as it saw what the flash of light was. John's eyes also widened slightly, as he saw an ethereal soul form of a man float in the air between him and the creature. John instantly recognized both the aura and the face. It's the holy aura, and not only that, but he has the same appearance as the statue of the man in the palace. John had always wondered who the man and women were who were depicted in the statues within his palace. Now he knew who the man was, at least partially. The holy aura. It was the first time the holy aura had taken a solid form. When he spoke to celestial soul rend, it had only been his aura present, and not this current form of his. "You dare lay a hand on my chess piece?" The man suddenly spoke. His voice seemed to cleanse John of any fear and instilled calmness and peace within him instead. The creature was yet to come to its senses, but eventually managed to do so. How is this possible?" the creature asked in surprise. "That is not important," the man replied quickly. "All you need to know is that he is not to be touched by you. As for this trial, continue with it as normal. If he cannot pass, then it was never destined to be," the man said to the creature. He suddenly peered up into the sky, as if seeing something far beyond in the void. A frown appeared on the man's face, as if he had seen something displeasing. He suddenly turned to look at John, and their eyes met. John instantly felt as if he was being stared at by the universe itself. He had never felt so exposed or powerless. It was as if he was being stared at by a god. The man carefully stared at John, as if inspecting every detail of him. He suddenly raised his hand, and a small portion of his power landed on John's forehead, carving a rune into it. "Gah!" John cried out in pain from the rune being carved. It felt as if his skin was being flayed and seared, while his soul was being destroyed. The pain lasted for a few seconds, until the rune was completely carved. The pain suddenly stopped. John quickly inspected his forehead with his divine sense. A complex circle, innately detailed, surrounded a symbol he had seen before, the symbol of infinity. The rune was complex and simple at the same time, and emanated an incredible power, similar to that of the holy aura. "This is the last time I can aid you." The man suddenly peered up into the sky again, and his frown deepened. He suddenly disappeared, returning to the holy gate once more, his aura completely vanishing. His lingering voice echoed through the air. "Explain it to him." Confusion washed over John at what had just happened, and he noticed the bright white rune on his forehead instantly fade. His forehead returned to normal, as if there was never a rune carved into his flesh in the first place. He stared at the creature, who had just been about to kill him. The creature stood there with a dazed expression, also stunned at the events that had just unfolded. It snapped out of its daze and peered at John, its expression quite amusing. "Explain what?" John asked. A seemingly endless distance away, a large planet hovered in the void. It was so large as to nearly be a star, and contained countless lives on it. Numerous cities, filled with temples and palaces so large that they dwarfed mountains, covered much of the planet. Within the most regal and grand of those cities, a central palace towered high into the sky. It was the most grand and awe-inspiring building on the entire planet, hinting at its importance. On one of the highest floors within the palace, several men and women, clad in luxurious robes fit for the most heavenly of kings, stood around a glowing object. Incredibly detailed formation runes glowed on the surface of the object. They each emanated incredible power, as if a wave of their hands could shatter planets and extinguish stars. The object before them suddenly faded, causing frowns to appear on all their faces. "The connection was lost before we could identify its location, but we can now be certain of it. His inheritance still exists, and so does a trace of his spirit. We must locate it and obtain it," one of the men spoke out. His voice was ancient-sounding, but just listening to it was as one was listening to the heavens itself speak. He paused for a moment before continuing. "Our search has failed," as he noticed the search quickly. "He will not appear out in the open again, and will return to whatever place obscures our vision of him. However, we have narrowed the search to a corner of this universe." The man looked towards one of the other men in the room, who appeared to be much younger. He appeared to be in his late teens or early 20s, and his face was incredibly handsome. Long black hair flowed down his head to his shoulders, and he wore an incredible gold and blue suit of armor, making him look even more impressive. His cultivation was lower than everyone else in the room, but he was allowed to stand equal to them, signifying his incredible status. "Haruth," the ancient man spoke out. The young man stepped forward and fell to one knee before the leader. "I am at your service, Patriarch," the young man replied. "With your recent ascension, I believe the time has come to give you a trial to prove your worthiness as my successor. Travel to the area we have narrowed our search down to and find the inheritance. If you do this, you will have proved your worth," the Patriarch said. "It will be done," Haruth bowed once more and quickly turned around. His face was lit with determination and anticipation as he strode out of the grand chamber. A woman within the group watched the young man stride out of the room before she turned back towards the Patriarch. "You're sending him out alone?" the woman asked in a slightly concerned voice. "The area where Haruth is going is low in power. He will be far stronger than any threat he runs into there. Besides, if he cannot even accomplish this much, then he was never destined to succeed me," the Patriarch spoke out in an unfazed tone. His gaze shifted to a certain direction and pierced out into the endless expanse of space. A slight hint of anticipation appeared on his usually emotionless face.